Okay, welcome to our August board meeting. As you can tell, I've ousted Jane and I'm in charge. I'm running the show. She's traveling today, so the vice president gets to take over for a meeting. So I actually am looking forward to it. But I will ask for some grace and patience because I don't run these meetings. And so there will be some things I probably do that aren't right or perfect. And we'll just make sure Mr. Leaf keeps me perfect. And we'll go from there. So I think, yeah. If he tells me, I'm in real trouble with the lawyers on it. So why don't we just go with the first item, which is roll call to establish a quorum?
Great. Member Andrews?
Here.
Secretary Johnson?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Member Bosler?
Present.
Member Grego?
Here.
Member Countryman?
I am present. Thank you.
Vice President Lyons?
Here.
And President Dolan is absent.
Great, thank you. So we have a quorum. Our next item is welcome, introductions, and announcements. So I will welcome you again, like I just did 30 seconds ago. Thanks for being here. I think today's agenda, you never know. If I say it'll be short, it could go long, but I don't anticipate it being really long. As our chair likes to say, we'll take restroom breaks as needed. So if somebody really needs something, text me or raise your hand and we'll figure that out. But otherwise, I think we'll be pretty diligent to move through the agenda. I think we have a few introductions and announcements.
We have some announcements. Yes, sir. So first of all, we have a departure to announce. So Megan Giglini, sorry for messing that up. A senior environmental scientist in our flood planning and programs branch will be leaving the board for a promotional opportunity as program manager with DWR's Salton Sea Restoration Office. Megan has been with the board since May 2021 and has been a key team member, primarily on activities related to the Yolo Bypass Cache Slough Partnership, including the master plan, tribal consultation and coordination, CEQA, and defining ecosystem baselines. We very much appreciate Megan's dedication and contribution to the board during her tenure, and we wish her the best of luck in her new role. Thank you, Megan.
Megan, do you mind standing up so we can all really say thank you to you like that? We really appreciate it. You've done a ton of work and really been helpful. Everyone appreciates it. And I know I'm really speaking for the chair because you know she takes these hard when somebody goes, but she also really loves everybody that's worked really hard to do everything. And so we want to recognize you, make you stand up a little longer. Thank you. Hope the new promotion goes great and then you promote back to us in a couple of years. We'll see you then. So thank you again. Let's pause.
I have one welcome. So please welcome Vanessa Najera to the permitting section as an intake specialist who started earlier this week. Vanessa brings a unique combination of mechanical engineering training and permit processing experience to her role, which provides her with a strong foundation in building codes and regulations. Vanessa is highly skilled in database management and has a proven track record in efficiently processing permit applications. We are very pleased to welcome her to the team, and we are sure she will provide exceptional support to our team and the regulated community. So welcome, Vanessa.
welcome. Glad to have you. Do you have more?
I have one announcement. We are pleased to announce that Jamie Silva has been promoted to Environmental Program Manager over the Environmental and Land Management Branch. Jamie has been with the board serving as a senior environmental scientist for the past 2 years, providing support on environmental and regulatory compliance for the encroachment permit review process. Prior to joining the board, Jamie was with the Department of Water Resources in the Division of Integrated Science and Engineering, working on tidal wetland restoration planning and research and delta environmental compliance. We look forward to Jamie's project management and leadership skills in his new role. And Jamie's not with us here today,
Oh,
but congratulations, Jamie.
that's great to hear somebody being promoted up within the organization. Love that. Smart call, get a promotion, go on vacation for a day. I like that. Good job.
That's
Yeah.
all I have.
That's all? Okay. So next item is simply to review the agenda, but I suspect everybody has seen the agenda. So I'm not really sure if I really need to go through the whole thing. Do I need to read through the agenda? I don't, right? Like I said, we have a couple of items that might take a little bit of time or might not, but in general, we'll probably be diligent, like I said, and move through relatively quickly. A couple of informational reports that are going to be super helpful so the whole board can catch up on some things that we care about quite a bit. A lot of written reports, which we've all gone through, but if anybody has questions on those, either the public or from the board, just, let us know and we'll make sure that we highlight those and do them. So I think that's the review of the agenda. And our next item is to approve minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval today, June 28th and July 26th. And I've reviewed them and I believe they're in order, except that we have a typo in the June 28 minutes. It's the same typo that we had last month, 2 months in a row. The header, the date is correct in the title and in the footers, but incorrect in the third line. And so I move that we approve the July 26 minutes as presented in the packet and the June 28 minutes with an edit to the third line to strike April 26, 2024 and replace that with June 28, 2024.
Countryman has a second.
Member Andrews. Call the roll.
What do you
Call the roll.
You mean-
Call the roll.
Oh, yeah, I thought you asked, she had a question. I'm like, yeah, feel free to ask. Got
I
it.
know, I didn't know if
So
there was
she
going
just
to be
raised
some
it.
debate.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. So can you call the roll, please?
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Aye.
Jerry Johnson is aye.
That's how you
Member
look.
Bosler?
Aye.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Vice President Florence?
Aye.
And President Dolan is absent. Motion
So
passes.
the ayes have it. I've been wanting to see that for a while. All right, so then we will run into our consent items. All three consent items are still on. Nothing's changed since yesterday's meeting. Okay, so we have 3 consent items. Are there any questions about these from the board or the public? Are you
You
speaking
just-
in code or what?
I was asking Mr. Dewitt, does he need to read through them?
Do we have to read through the consent items or do you want to go ahead and just do that? Go ahead and you can read them. Okay, perfect.
Wow.
Wow. Careful, he's gonna put somebody in the audience next. I mean, I can read them, but I figure somebody else would. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, President or Vice President Lyons. Yeah, we have 3 consent items. The first one is a resolution to execute a quitclaim deed. 5B is a resolution delegating the executive officer to authorize existing unpermitted bridges in relation to the governor's middle mile broadband initiative. We had a informational briefing, I believe last month, to go over that. And 5C is a permit 19861 for California Department of Transportation to authorize a bridge in Kern County.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Appreciate that. Is there anybody that would like to remove something from the consent calendar? Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Do we need to ask the audience if they want to remove anything?
Public comment. There's any public comment on this item.
Okay, are there any public comments on the consent items? Okay, can you call the roll?
Anyone online?
Oh.
No? Okay.
Great. Please call the roll. And a second.
Member Andrews,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Member Bosler,
Aye.
Grego,
Yes.
Member Countryman,
Yes.
Vice President Lyons,
Aye.
and President Dolan's absent. Motion passes.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. So it looks like next on the agenda is public comment, which are on non-agenda items only. I think we have pretty good group of folks who are gonna make public comment. Do you want to just read through them? Do you want me to do that?
We'll start with Mr. Spalding, followed by Ms. Gudgeon and Ms. Kern, and then Ms. Gardner.
Okay. Okay,
Okey
here you
doke.
are, Mr. Spalding. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Vice President Lyons, board members, Mr. Leaf. I just noticed as I was doing my comments, I have a typo in the very top line, so typos happen. Thank you for the attention that you're giving the upcoming erosion control projects on the Lower American River. As others have suggested, myself and others with concerns have been participating in the Bank Protection Working Group meetings. Based on the information presented by the Corps and their consultants, we've not seen any significant changes in the project footprint and erosion control techniques from what was included in the initial drafts, despite the over 1,900 public comments that were submitted before the end of February. Some of the information presented by the Corps in recent meetings has been somewhat misleading. Examples of erosion that occurred in '86 in the River Park and Sac State areas are examples. Erosion did occur on some vegetated banks. However, these occurred in areas with much higher river velocities and in places where flow dynamics are influenced by upstream structures and river curvature. The examples from other parts of the river used to justify the project are not representative of the Project 3B area. Removing trees, vegetation, and their roof mats, which help to naturally stabilize the banks and have withstood high flows in order to install bank armoring, makes many feel less safe. Post-construction flow velocities will be increased at the riverbank due to the loss of vegetation. It'll take generations to regrow the protective vegetation, which will not be equivalent to what's being removed. It will not have the diversity and complexity that the habitat requires. Some of you have had the opportunity to tour the site with the Corps, but we haven't. Maps we've obtained labeled preliminary 100% design, covering the area from Howe Avenue to the Mayu Drain, show no meaningful reduction in the area of vegetation and tree removal. The drawings provided at last week's Bank Protection Working Group meeting indicate many more trees could be saved simply by reducing the distance above where the current proposed bank armoring will be placed. This would still provide ample protection for the levee prism. SAFCA and the Corps have been saying that the Contract 3B work will be less destructive than that in the Campus Commons area. For the sake of the Parkway, I hope you're right. We still see much room for improvement and will continue to urge the Corps to take the public's concerns seriously and make necessary alterations. Again, we're looking for a win-win-win: erosion control, flood protection, and a wild and scenic American river. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Guston. Good morning, Vice President and board members. I respectfully request that as the non-federal lead agency for the American River Common Features Project 3B, you convey our request to SAFCA that the Bank Protection Working Group meet in person. The facilitators are doing their best. However, dialogue between participants is not possible, even through chat. I want to thank you for providing your board meeting as a place to voice concerns such as these. The inability to locate information that USACE explored bioengineering measures for individual contracts and segments as promised in the 2016 GRR Public Involvement Appendix. We can't, my sentence is a little awkward. It's the inability to locate it. And so I'm wondering where this information might be found. USAGE promised that they would explore a fuller range of alternatives in subsequent environmental impact reports and impact statements. I hope that this is being done, and if so, when and where will the public have access to the information? I'm assuming it's when they produce the next document. Were alternatives and exploration of materials such as Native American river rock or use of boulders and cobbles directly in problem areas considered, along with biology, instead of similar size riprap by itself? Where rock is needed, why has usage chosen large-scale riprap? I and others have stated that we would like specific and surgical implementation of construction ways and methods utilized. Why does this design plan for large-scale destruction of habitat and use of non-native materials? Instead, could dump trucks at limited locations or conveyor belts deliver river rock down the levee and small bobcats place rocks near the river? During the April 3rd presentation to the Bank Protection Working Group, USAGE stated that rock would not be used at Site 2-3 for Contract 2, but transverse rock structures were added to the design, so no maintenance would be required for 50 to 100 years, whereas a vegetation-only design might have needed more frequent maintenance. The residents of Sacramento should have been allowed to comment upon a vegetation-only design, even if more frequent maintenance is required. Regional Parks, the agency responsible for carrying out the American River Parkway Plan, states that it is critical that the proposed project considers a range of reasonable alternatives and provides an adequate analysis to demonstrate that project impacts to the parkway are minimized and/or avoided to the extent feasible for both the flood control effort and the mitigation effort. My hope is that you and your staff are investigating alternatives and that when you host the workshop focused on this project, we will be pleasantly surprised by your proving that there is a better way. We'll keep researching and conveying our ideas until then, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Niskern, and I appreciate being able to comment publicly that you provide for us. I want to talk about two different rivers today. I'll start with the Missouri River, which starts west of Bozeman, Montana, where the Gallatin, Jefferson, and Madison rivers converge at Three Forks. This is where America's largest river is born. It is the longest river in the U.S. at 2,341 miles. It starts in the Rocky Mountains and continues south to its confluence with the Mississippi River at St. Louis, Missouri. Congress gave authority to the Corps for the construction, operation, and maintenance of the Missouri River for navigation, flood control, flow regulation, and bank protection. The Missouri Riverbank Stabilization and Navigation Project provides a 9-foot deep, 300-foot wide navigation channel. Before the Corps management, the enormous loads of sediment lent the name of Big Muddy to the Missouri. Along the riverbank, there are about 140 docks and terminals that support barge traffic. One barge can handle 15 tons of goods, and 2 tugboats can push 6 barges at one time, almost equivalent to 1,000 trucks taking the same load. Various forces that cause erosion to the Missouri's riverbanks include wave action from commercial transport, ice, sun, large seasonal storms such as tornadoes. In the erosion plan for the American River, our lower American River, in the watershed GRR appendix, the Corps stated that the structures, launchable rock trenches for protecting the Missouri, will be utilized in the project on the lower American River because they've been proven so effective on the Missouri. There is a portion of this river The Missouri River as well has been designated as wild and scenic that starts at Fort Benton, Montana, and flows 140 miles east, known as the Missouri National Recreation River. This is where Lewis and Clark spent 3 weeks in 1805 exploring the area. The Corps, along with the National Park Service, now oversee the erosion prevention structures for the riverbanks in this section. Parts of this section is owned by private parties. They review each proposed project separately because local site conditions vary greatly. They work with biodegradable material, require permits for using riprap, they limit the clearing of vegetation, and they do not allow windrow revetment because it is considered inappropriate. It allows the stream bank to erode and launch the piled materials into the river with the intent of stabilizing the bank. This practice, like the launching rock trenches, is considered inappropriate and ineffective. Thank you.
Did you time that? You literally hit 259.82.
Well, I added some edits while I was talking to you, and it was 2:30 last night. So I thought, well, if they give me more than 2 minutes, I'll be lucky.
We would.
Thank you
but
so
it was
much.
very impressive. No, you get 3, so you were good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, Ms. Gardner?
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Barbara Gardner, and I'm basically speaking for myself as a citizen and for friends and family who enjoy the American River Parkway. And I would like to thank you for all the work that you do in keeping us safe from floods. About a year ago, I was walking on the H Street Bridge and couldn't help but noticing all this noise and construction and bulldozers and land moving equipment downriver. And wondered what it was. It was very noisy. I was horrified, really, because the riverbank no longer looked like it used to look, and it looked kind of like it was from some futuristic movie where that was post-apocalyptic. I noticed sometime after that there started to be signage appearing further upstream about the project from the Army Corps of Engineers. But then one day I was walking along the Guy West Bridge, and just beside that bridge was this beautiful oak that had been there for hundreds of years. I don't know exactly how long, and they were starting to cut it down. When I came back from my walk, it had further continued being dismembered, and within a relatively short period of time, it had been chipped and carried away with no trace of it left. And I felt just sickened by this whole process. I mean, to see this beautiful thing being, torn into by these saws, it's like I had this pit in my stomach and my chest felt hollow. It was terrible. I was heartened a little bit by the signage that seemed to indicate that this was only going as far as Howe Avenue. What's done is done. But I realized that being heartened by this was a little bit premature. I've lived here for 39 years. My husband and I came here in 1985. And when we first came here, a future coworker took us down to the American River, to the Parkway. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, I can live here. This is great. It's an incredible natural resource, home to diverse wildlife, a source of recreation and inspiration for humans. And it appears to continue to be at risk by the Army Corps of Engineers plans for flood control. They don't include preservation of the landscape, and I think they should. This is a precious environment, and the plans really end up disfiguring the very landscape we're trying to preserve. That draws people here. I think there's every reason to think that there are alternatives, that we can have flood control as well as preservation of the landscape. And in fact, I think they probably work together. The Sacramento Valley Flood Protection Board is one of the partners involved in this whole project. And so I urge you, I really implore you to ask for a pause in this process to allow for more public comment and response to public comment and a redirection of the focus of this on preserving both flood protection as well as this natural environment. It's a wild and scenic river. It will probably stay wild forever, but the scenic portion of it is at high risk. So I ask for your help. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last paper. So that's the end of our submitted papers for public comment. Does anybody else want to make a public comment that's here in person before we see if anybody online does? Okay, looks like we're okay there. Do we have anybody online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, great. Thank you for the comments. We appreciate it. So next we will move into the update, the legislative update, which is, well, I should say we're wrapping up public comment. Thank you. So we're moving into legislative update, which is a written report. I don't see anything you need to add to that. Everybody's had a chance to review the written reports. We appreciate the work that went into that and what's happening. As we move from the legislative update, we'll go to the our first presentation.
Sorry, I have one question on
Okay,
that.
go for it.
I noticed the FFRMS, and forgive me, I forgot the acronym, like that's being finalized soon. It seems like it's gonna have widespread impacts on systems across the country, not just in California, but I'm just wondering, will those impacts be addressed in the next plan? And is there any early planning on how we're gonna do that?
Okay. So we'll follow up on
I don't
that.
know, we'll follow up.
Do you want me to do these blind so it might be easier to see? Is that a problem for others?
Oh, it's very shadowy, yeah. More like shadowed.
Does that help? Oh, probably.
This is really. She just talked about it. Big deal. It'd be nice to get a report on.
Now we show up on the screen.
Okay. All right, you see, we do it all here. We can fix that too. Are there any public comments on the ledge report that was written, submitted? No. Okay. Anyone online?
There are no hands raised online.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I think now we'll go into the 8A, which is United States Army Corps of Engineers. Presentation of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers levee inspection results for Reclamation District 784. Mr. Dosu is going to start it with board staff, and then we have Emily Green, I think, from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as well. Oh, it's,
Small correction there, but it will be
Sorry.
Juan Gonzalez.
I don't look at it. Good to see you. Good to see
That's
you.
okay, totally understandable. Good morning, Vice President of Alliance, members of the board. My name is Zubair Dosu, manager of the Deferred Encroachment Compliance Section for the board. Today, I'm here to introduce Juan Gonzalez, Chief of the Corps' Inspection Section. Juan will give a presentation on the inspection results, the Corps' inspection results for Reclamation District 784 Best Slough and Dry Creek Levee System. After his presentation, I will give board staff's analysis and assist in answering any questions you may have. Also in attendance with us today, we do have Patrick Marr, General Manager of RD 784, as well as Tom Engler, District Engineer of RD 817. Tom could not make it in attendance, but he is online. Both Patrick and Tom are welcome to provide comments and answer questions as well. And without further ado, please welcome Juan.
Thank you, Zubair. Good morning, Vice President of Alliance and members of the board. As Zubair mentioned, I'm here to present the inspection results on the Reclamation District 784 Best Slough and Dry Creek system. I'm not Emily Green, I'm Juan Gonzalez. I'm the chief of the inspection section. I apologize for the last minute change. We just got a lot of busy schedules, so we had to do some juggling there. The system shown here on the map is in Yuba County. So this is up north. You can see that it's surrounded by Best Slough as well as Bear Creek, or excuse me, Bear River on the south. The system does have 3 segments that make up this one system. In total, we inspected about 7.25 miles. This is the report card for the levee system. Each column there is each of the levee segments. The system is not participating in the LOI SWIFT program. From this inspection, it is inactive. The ratings there, you can see that the U ratings, unacceptable ratings, are the ratings that are making it inactive or unacceptable. And then I've got 4 observations here, 4 examples of observations that we observed during the inspection that are of concern. The first picture is actually the water side of a pipe. It doesn't necessarily show the issue at hand, but what was found was that during the video inspection of this pipe for the report that we were provided, it's about a 95-ish foot pipe. They tried to video inspect it. They got about 7.5 feet before they hit another pipe that was inside the pipe. So it's a pipe inside of a pipe. Couldn't go further. They went to the other water side, excuse me, the land side, tried the same and got about the same distance. And so there's a big 80-ish feet in the center that hasn't been video inspected. And so there's a concern obviously there that we don't understand what the condition of that pipe is.
I'm sorry. Could you explain that again? I didn't really understand what.
Sure. And I wanted to throw a picture up there to actually
Yeah, you
show the
can't-
inside of the pipe. Those pictures are so small, they're just very granular. So the video inspection report, and I don't, maybe Zubair has more information, but the video inspection report, when they tried to video inspect it, they only got 7.5 feet into the pipe. They stopped because the pipe diameter got smaller because there was another pipe in there, and so it was a pipe in a pipe.
Another.
So it was like a PVC pipe inside of this corrugated metal pipe.
Wow.
When they went to the other side, they ran into the same issue. So the majority of the pipe itself has a pipe inside of it.
Wow.
In the,
Never
well, I
heard
should
of
have
that.
said, trying to channel our chair was very good at this. I'm not. That was Mr. Countryman for the record. If somebody needs that on video, asking the question, like lines, can the video not like get into the smaller one, or is it like closed off? Or I'm just kind of curious how the pipe on the pipe kind of stops at, only 7 feet.
I'm not sure if you.
So I'm just going to fast forward a bit through the presentation to show you what's going on. Essentially, if you look at photo 2, that is the pipe inside the pipe that Juan is referring to. It's an 8-inch PVC pipe that's leaked within the host 12-inch pipe. Essentially, the video camera is, you could think of it as a remote control car contraption with a video on top of it. The wheels weren't large enough to make it over the invert, the gap between the invert between the 2 pipes. So essentially, they had to stop the inspection at 7 feet, and the rest of the remainder of the pipe was not inspected. There was a level of failure for this pipe with the video inspection that was done. It was rather high. It was 5 for severe. But this facility, this crossing does have a minor alteration request and is in queue to be replaced by the district.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've never seen that.
The second observation there, the top right-hand side, what we're showing there is a crack that's 2 inches wide. It's about 18 inches deep and 80 feet long. And so it's a very long longitudinal crack on the upper landside slope. The third picture, bottom left, this is about a 10 to 12 foot face on the water side. It extends about 100 feet. And so it appears to be as a result of some erosion that's occurring there. And it's just loss of material, maybe a little bit of a slope instability occurring at that location. The fourth picture, bottom right, what we're looking at is a ditch that's right up against the levee. It varies in width from 10, sometimes 20, as wide as 20 feet. It has a depth of about 6 feet-ish. And then it is right up against the levee. And so it's taking some of that material off of the levee.
And that's on the land side. That's on the land side.
This is the landside toe. Correct. In some areas, we estimated about 3 feet of material loss from the levee embankment.
Does that pull water in that ditch?
I'm not sure what the purpose is of that ditch.
Yeah.
That's the last slide I have. Happy to take questions.
Appreciate it. Are there any questions before we continue on to the board?
Yeah,
Member Grego?
thank you, through the chair. So that pipe, is that an irrigation pipe?
Drainage,
It's a drainage pipe?
district's drainage pipe.
And is there a permit for that pipe?
It's a system feature. There may or may not be a permit for that. I failed to check that, but yeah, there's not always a permit for system feature because they benefit the system. But yes, it's something that is in the as-built.
Who's responsible? Is it 784 that would be?
784.
Thank you.
So we'll make sure we get the answer to the question too.
I'm sorry.
We'll get the answer on the question. Is there
Yeah, thank you.
And then also I wanted to thank Juan for his presentation and to announce that Zubair again from the board. This is a vicinity map showing the location of the levee system. This map helps to show the surrounding counties and cities. As you can see, this levee system provides flood protection for the rural area between Plumas Lake and the city of Wheatland. The majority of the levee system is maintained by RD 784, while the latter portion along Dry Creek is maintained by RD 817. That portion is shown in blue for reference. This levee system is also known as the Horseshoe Levee System. That name you may be familiar with from the June board meeting with the recent adoption of the resolution of statement of necessary work for the formation of Maintenance Area 20. That is for the state to take over the operations and maintenance of the Horseshoe Levee System from the district. This slide shows the comparison from the 2011 core inspection to the 2022 inspection. The areas highlighted in green are the improved areas. As you can see, each levee segment did improve in vegetation growth, settlement, depression, and rutting. The Unit 5 and Unit 3 portions did also improve in erosion bank caving and animal control. And lastly, the Unit 6 portion did also improve in flood preparedness and training and sod cover. As Juan mentioned before, this levee system is not active in PL 8499. It is currently inactive. It did receive unacceptable ratings and items affecting eligibility. For instance, encroachments, each of the levee segments did receive an unacceptable rating, as well as for the Unit 6 portion, this would have been the portion along RD 817. It did receive an unacceptable rating for animal control. So this next slide is a photo reflection of the items affecting eligibility that were rated unacceptable that we've seen in the last slide table. Photo number 1 is reflective of, let me go back here. In total, there was 13 observations that were rated unacceptable red, and that is because they affect PL 8499 eligibility. Out of the total 13 unacceptable items, there were 12 that were encroachments. And out of the 12 encroachments, there were 8 that were rated unacceptable for drainage pipes. Now, photo number 1, top left, shows the same photo. This is the same crossing as the Corps inspection, photo number 1 from Juan's presentation. However, this photo is taken at the inlet side on the land side. As you can see, there's heavy vegetation obscuring the inspection. But as I mentioned before, we do have an internal inspection from the video inspection that was done that you can see in photo 2 on the left. That photo is not as pleasant to look at as the other photos, but it does give you a perspective of the inspector who's inspecting that facility. Obviously, if it's an external inspection, there's limitations. You can't really see what's going on inside the pipe, especially if it's submerged. At the time of the video inspection, they did have to de-water this pipe to conduct that video inspection. And as we talked about before, there was the sleeving of the pipe with the smaller diameter that prevented a full video inspection. But this pipe, there is a request for it to be removed and replaced. Photo 3, bottom left, shows one of 12 encroachments relating to a fence. This fence in particular was a barbed wire fence. It is shown in the as-built, but it does inhibit access for the levees, so it's a problem for maintenance of that levee or flood fighting. It is a barbed wire fence, and there is no permit associated to the fence. Lastly, photo 4, bottom right, shows one of 12 encroachments relating to excavation. And this photo in particular shows scarping that occurred, 3 feet of scarping that occurred at the landside toe, that levee. The damage is possibly due to patches of farming equipment. And so that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any questions there may be. Also, Patrick is in the audience, and he would like to provide a comment as well.
Why don't we, Patrick, before you go, maybe we see if there's any questions and then we'll have them pop up. So are there any board questions? Patrick?
Photo number 3. I can't really see the levee. Is it?
It's probably the angle the photo was taken of, but that fencing that you see there is crossing the levee, so it's a cross levee fence.
I see.
There's a lot of grass, and it seems to be a pretty high. It's probably not the best photo, but it is reflective of the one fence encroachment that was targeted out there or rated unacceptable.
Where's it located? Do you know that photo?
Yes, this is actually on the best slough. This is the Unit 6 portion. Sorry, not the best
So it's
slough.
on the best
Dry
slough.
Creek portion, RD 817.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Board?
If I can, the photo number 3, the fence there, if I remember correctly, I don't believe the as-built show a fence across the levee. It shows a gate. And so when we got out there, that fence essentially prevented us from going any further. We just couldn't inspect a large, several hundred feet of levee. Yeah. So.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions from the public? What? Is there somebody who want to talk that I'm missing? Anybody online?
We have one hand raised online, Tom Engler.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you, members of the board. Just wanted to provide an update from the RD 817 side of things. That fence in photo 3 has been removed. We were able to work with the property owners this past summer Through some FSRP funding, we were graveling the top of that levee. We were able to install a gate on one fence crossing and remove this secondary fence crossing. So that is no longer there. The levee is now gravelled. We also repaired the few rodent holes on that section of levee. In addition, all but one of our pipes have been either repaired or replaced or removed in the past several years. The one that's remaining is in the permitting queue, and we unfortunately ran out of funding, so we haven't been able to respond to comments. But we have that in the permit queue, likely for the state when they take it over as a maintenance area to repair that. So I believe all of our work is nearing completion. The one last thing I'll say is there were signs of beaver infestation, and we actually did a geophysical survey this past year. We have areas where we think there may be beaver dens, and we're working on contracting somebody right now to go out, excavate those beaver dens and backfill those for us.
Mr. Engel, I have a quick question, Mike Lyons. Is the one pipe you said that's left, what's it reflective in picture number 2?
No, it is not. It was not shown in pictures. It's a complicated pipe. It basically runs under the levee at a slight angle and then turns directions twice to come out downstream and landward of County Road. So it starts on the upstream side of County Road, crosses, and comes daylights out on the other side. So our plan was to remove or abandon that pipe in place and put one perpendicular pipe that's easier to access and maintain at 40 Mile Road. Unfortunately, we ran into some issues with core levee safety comments and then ran out of our funding to complete those. So that's kind of in limbo right now. We removed one other pipe that was shown as a critical item on the 2013 core inspection. We lined 2 pipes and we replaced one other system drainage pipe in that section of levee.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
Good morning, Vice President Valines and members of the board. My name is Patrick Marr, and I'm the General Manager for Reclamation District 784. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on our inspection results today. Just to comment on the slides that Juan and Zubair put up. First of all, the pipes. We received the draft inspection results in June earlier this summer, and we immediately started putting together an aggressive plan to address those pipes. We were speaking about the pipe that has the PVC pipe inside of it. That one's going to be replaced hopefully within the next year. In fact, all of the unacceptable pipes in that report are slated to be replaced by the end of next year. We tried to get a couple of them done this year. We have a letter of authorization request in with the board that's in review. We submitted that in April. We have not received authorization yet. So the game plan is to do all of them next summer. So we'll be quite busy. Also addressing all of the other items that we can take care of. There are several unacceptable trees growing out of the levee. We had a pre-bid meeting yesterday, and those are slated to come out before the upcoming flood season. Also, several other just lone fence posts and things like that. We went ahead and pulled out. The crack you saw in the photo, I think it was photo number 2 in slide 5. We actually addressed that one yesterday. There are others similar to it that we will continue to work on. Everybody knows that this is going to be formed into a state maintenance area, but I can reassure the board that RD 784 isn't just going to sit back and wait for that to happen. We're going to do everything we possibly can to wipe off as many items as we can as funding becomes available. We don't receive regular funding to operate and maintain this rural portion of our district. However, grant funding sources have been generous the past couple of years. As far as the pipes, we secured a generous grant in December from Yuba Water Agency to replace those pipes, and trees will be removed through FMAP funding. Some of the other bigger ticket items, like the ditches up against the levee and several fences right up against the levee that are unacceptable, those are going to be a bit more challenging. And so that's going to involve some outreach to landowners and finding out different avenues we can take to try to address those. Welcome to entertain any questions.
Yeah, any questions?
I want to thank you and Tom for showing an aggressive nature of addressing these core inspections reports. It's the right thing to do, and I appreciate that the way you're taking this seriously and trying to get these corrected. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board? Anybody from the public? Anybody online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, thank you. I think I would just mirror Mr. Countryman's comments. We appreciate all three, of you being up there and sort of the approach you're taking to really get on and solve these issues is great. So I know there's a lot to do. I actually am encouraged to hear the different sources of funding and grants are actually there and working. We don't always hear that, so appreciate it, but I know you're working hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. When do we get to look? We have to get. Okay. So, let's see, we are moving to board item 9. Should we take a 5-minute, literally 5-minute break so everyone can maybe take a little time, and then we'll come right back and start for what might be a little longer or might not, I don't know. So without seeing, of course, I'm not wearing my glasses, but I'm not seeing any one oppose that. So why don't we take it 10:05, we will start number 9, okay? Thank you.
This is not a James.
If we can get everybody here. Mr. Countryman. Now we got it. All right, it's 10:05 on my phone. We made it. No, it still says 10:05. I'm good. Yeah, you can't trust a clock. Come on. So we are going to item number 9. I am going to hold the mic closer. We were informed it was hard to hear me for our friends that are online. So thank you for your comments. It's helpful. We notice if I'm too quiet or now too loud, just let us know and we'll make sure we adjust for that. So thank you for sending in those messages. So on item number 9, this is going to be approving the recommendation, it looks like, is approve a permit 19-320. It's an action item of the board. I thought what I would do, and I asked our council to help me with this, just to make sure I lay out the process for this, only because I don't usually run the meetings and I just want to make sure I do it the correct way. So I'm going to just read through that. Does that work? So the way this will do it is we will introduce the item. We'll have the staff presentation of the item. We'll have the applicant presentation, board member questions for staff and applicant. We'll have public comment at that point. Then we'll have comments by interested parties opposed to the project, which I assume, okay, yeah, I understand. And then we'll have rebuttal by the applicant, then any other interested parties, either in support or opposition. We'll have additional board member questions, and then we'll bring it back to the board at that point for discussion and motion and vote, assuming that all occurs. So I just wanted to lay that out. I'll be following that agenda. And I think the easiest way to do it is just to have staff start on number 9. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I know. See, thank you. So I was just going to give a quick update and then we'll shoot to you.
No problem.
So this was heard in May for anybody who is here now or wasn't or watching online. We've extended it to this date. The hope from the board was that we would take a little more time to look into it. I was assigned to be one of those members, and so I did go do a site visit, I think in June, maybe early July. Board member, our chair, the president, and I did a tour. There were no other groups with us, just staff, and went through the property extensively, looked at it. So that was good. We then subsequently had a follow-up meeting. I don't know if it was in August or the end of July. Okay, we had a meeting at the county with both the applicant, some members of the community who were wanting to be involved, two of the Board of Supervisors from the county. Very good meeting. We had it there, hosted by them. Very good discussion. And then we wrapped that up, and then here we are today. So I think that's about as general as I can be on the update. If there's anything else I'm missing, no? Great, thank you. So I guess the takeaway I want to make sure that everyone had is that we always work hard to try to make sure we are listening. And it felt like, for me personally, I had not gone up there and seen it. I really wanted to. So I know this delay hasn't been fun for anybody on either side, but it was helpful for the board and for us, and I appreciate that time to do it. So I would like to turn it over to you and appreciate your report. I believe we have a pretty good detailed analysis again to go through, but I think it's important.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Vice President of Lines, members of the board. My name is Humberto Negrete, permitting engineer with the board. I will be presenting agenda item 9A. Permit number 19320 is a floodway restoration project near the city of Chico, brought forth for your consideration by the California Department of Parks and Recreation. This presentation briefly summarizes my staff report's findings to the board and the post-May 2024 board meeting activities between board staff and interested parties. The California Department of Parks and Recreation is requesting authorization from the board to restore a 43-acre parcel from an orchard to riparian habitat by removing the existing orchard, 2 existing berms, non-native vegetation, then replanting the parcel with riparian vegetation, native grasses, a flow-through meadow, a buffer zone grassland, recreation trails, irrigation lines, and vehicle barriers. The existing agricultural well will be authorized to continue to provide irrigation to the site. The following slides are to get an understanding of where the project and the interested parties are located. This map shows the project is located in Butte County, southwest of the city of Chico. This vicinity map shows the applicant's parcels located approximately 5.5 miles southwest of the city of Chico. The 3 streams that contribute to flood flows at the project site, the Sacramento River, Mud Creek, and Big Chico Creek, are called out for reference. Also located at the, called out at this time due to the distance from the project location is the approximate location of the M&T Ranch parcel, shown with the larger circle, who is an interested party with a private levee along Big Chico Creek. For our permitting processes, the adjacent landowners were notified several times of the proposed project during the life of this project. One of the responses received was from M&T Ranch, who is not an adjacent landowner and will be discussed later in this presentation. Just bringing it up here for reference. This vicinity map, this project site map shows the applicant's 43-acre parcel located, outlined in white, located along River Road, a county road. The adjacent landowners, Mr. John Knock and Mr. Larry Mendonca, are also shown for reference and are also interested parties associated with this hearing. M&T Ranch parcel is located approximately 1.5 miles to the east and was brought up and shown in the previous map. During high water events, the parcel location experiences the combined flood flows of the Sacramento River, located within and along the west end of the parcel, Mud Creek, located along the east end of the parcel, and Big Chico Creek, located approximately 1/4 mile east of the parcel. The confluence of the 3 streams is located approximately 1.5 miles south of the parcel. The applicable codes and regulations that give this board authority are shown for reference. Staff's analysis of the existing conditions included the following. The current land use is farmland with an agricultural well and earthen berms. Department of Parks and Recreation owns the south or downstream parcel. The parcel is located between 2 of the 3 streams that contribute to the flood flow at the parcel location. There are no Army Corps of Engineers levees located on the parcel. The closest is located east on the east side of the Mud Creek. This site map shows the existing partial features along with the adjacent landowners and interested parties. One of the earthen berms is located along the east property line with Mr. Knock, and the small berm is located at the southwest corner of the parcel. The existing agricultural well will be authorized to irrigate the new proposed plantings along with the 5 utility poles running from Mr. Mendonca's property line to continue to supply power to the well. The project will change the current land use from farmland to recreational, which is in line with the board's easement at the location. The Mud Creek Channel is considered a federal civil works project, and the application needed a federal review and approval by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for components along Mud Creek. There is a federal levee located along the east bank of Mud Creek, which is not within the applicant's parcel, as previously stated. The proposed work and project features for the post-project conditions are shown here. I will go over each of these bullets in the next slide. This site map shows staff's analysis of the post-project conditions, which include the following work and project features: removal of the existing walnut orchard, the 2 existing earthen berms, the non-native vegetation, and the irrigation line. The planting of 35 acres of riparian vegetation, 6 acres of native grasses, and 5 acres of a flow-through meadow. A 200-foot grassland buffer along the northern property line, installation and operation of temporary and permanent drip irrigation connected to existing well, addition recreation trails, and the installation of vehicle barriers along the northern property line. All these proposed encroachments adhere to applicable Title 23 standards. Staff's findings of the hydraulic analysis included the following. A 2-dimensional hydraulic model using RMA2 software was used for this analysis to assess the impacts to the flood flows from the restoration plans. The model extends upstream from Highway 32 near River Mile 200, downstream to River Mile 191, and includes the flood flows of Big Chico Creek and Mud Creek. Light detection and ranging, or LIDAR data, was collected by DWR as part of the 2010 Central Valley Floodplain Evaluation and Delineation, or CVFED, was used as the topographical data in the model. Bathymetric data were were used for the channel sections. The design flows analyzed in the model were 260,000 cubic feet per second for the Sacramento River designated floodway, 2,000 cubic feet per second for the Big Chico Creek flow, and 113,000 cubic feet per second for Mud Creek. The flows were obtained from the board's designated floodway study and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers O&M manuals. The results of the model and the hydraulic impacts were presented in a hydraulic report prepared by Aries and Associates. The model showed that the designated flood flow overtops the federal levee and is detained along the Big Chico Creek private levee, which is taller. The changes to the water service elevation were analyzed for the existing and post-project conditions, and then compared to determine the extents and locations of the impacts. The water surface elevation for both conditions are shown in the parcel with the project parcel outlined in white. When compared, the majority of the water surface elevations are shown south of the flow through meadow, which is shown on the right map with the red arrow. This delta map only shows the changes in the water surface elevation for the proposed project conditions simulated at the design flows previously shown. The hydraulic impacts for the proposed project conditions show a maximum increase of 0.2 feet or 2.4 inches in water surface elevation occurring at the south end of the flow-through meadow, and increases of 0.1 feet or 1.2 inches occurring in the immediate surrounding yellow area. This increase in elevation is a result of the increased conveyance through the flow-through meadow, as compared to the existing orchard with berms. The analysis shows that the increase in the water surface elevation is attenuated within the adjacent or southern riparian parcel, which is also owned by the applicant. Similar to the impacts due to the water surface elevation, the flow velocities for the existing and post-project conditions were mapped and analyzed for any changes. The existing and proposed project flows remained in the same range. The post-project conditions showed an increase in flow velocity of 2 feet per second through the flow-through meadow and a decrease of 1 feet per second in Mud Creek. This delta map only shows the changes in the design flow velocity for the post-project conditions simulated at the design flows. The increase in velocity is greatest through the flow-through meadow, as shown in red. Shear stresses between the existing and post-project conditions were generated from the model for the design flow condition to assess erosion and sedimentation potential. An addendum to the hydraulic report shows the existing shear stress within the parcel range from 0 to 1 to 0.4 pounds per square foot, with most of the property experiencing 0.1 pound per square foot. The highest shear stress for the proposed conditions is 0.8 pounds per square foot, which is located within the flow-through meadow. A small decrease of shear stress within Mud Creek Channel is shown as a result of the berm removal. There was no changes in shear stress along the East Mud Creek levee. The image shows the change in shear stresses between existing and proposed conditions and shows that the shear stresses impacts due to the proposed conditions mirror the velocity impacts. This delta map only shows the changes in the shear stress with the proposed project conditions simulated at the design flows. It shows that it almost mirrors the velocity impacts through the flow-through meadow. Staff's analysis of the hydraulic analysis included the results of the hydraulic analysis demonstrated that removal of the orchard, berms, and vegetation and conversion to riparian habitat and grasslands with a flow-through meadow and grassland buffer creates a higher hydraulic conveyance potential with negligible impacts to the flood system and adjacent parcels. A 2.4-inch max increase in the water surface elevation at the south end of the flow-through meadow and a 2 feet per second maximum increase in the flood flow velocity at the same location are attenuated within the applicant-owned parcels. The post-project hydraulic conditions do not result in any adverse impacts to the state plan of flood control. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers review culminated with no adverse impact determination as well. A geotechnical investigation was not required for the proposed project because the proposed encroachments are considered to be sufficient distance with no significant excavations to have no potential adverse impacts to the Mud Creek levee. This project's relevant background information will be presented for the members' consideration. The applicant has been seeking a board permit since their initial permit application submission in 2008. Changes in legislation caused the applicant to resubmit the application in 2009. The board notified the interested parties in March of 2010 of the proposed project, and public comments were received for the design at the time. The proposed project was presented to the board under permit number 18576 in the June 2011 meeting as an informational briefing. The board made no decision, but recommended the applicant and interested parties try to resolve issues prior to bringing this for board approval. The concerns with the original design under permit 18576 were that the Sacramento River maximum flow use was 170,000 cubic feet per second instead of the 260,000 cubic feet per second, so the impacts to the flood system were unknown. Also, the location of the site within the floodway and vegetation maintenance were also some concerns. Please note that in the 1957 design flows for Sacramento River, Mud Creek, and Big Chico Creek are 160,000, 13,000, 7,500 cubic feet per second respectively. In the 19320 updated hydraulic study, 260,000 cubic feet per second for the Sacramento River designated floodway was used, which is considered conservative. Additionally, in the 19320 permit, Big Chico Creek flood flow used 2,000 cubic feet per second, which is above the 1,500 O&M flow. The flows used in the updated hydraulic analysis are based on the Sacramento River designated floodway study for the Sacramento River and the O&M manual flows for the Mud Creek and Big Chico Creek that represent a conservative hydraulic condition. Prior to the June 2011 board meeting, the applicant was advised to seek the endorsement of the LMA for the area, which is Butte County. There was a meeting conducted in February 2011 between the board, the applicant, and Butte County to discuss any concerns. The following month, Butte County Board of Supervisors voted against endorsing the project, but the applicant was able to enter some documents into the meeting record, which included the EIR addendum, maintenance and monitoring plan, and a sediment review analysis report. Permit 18576 was subsequently closed. To obtain Butte County's endorsement or statement of no objection prior to seeking a new board permit, the applicant held countywide public meetings over a period of 5 years and took feedback from interested parties to incorporate into the design. The combined efforts culminated with a list of proposed modifications provided by Butte County and interested parties to obtain their endorsement. However, not all modifications were agreed to by the applicant, and there was no further coordination with the applicant and board reviewer. The list of modifications provided to the applicant to incorporate it into the design are shown along with the applicant's design solutions shown in green, a compromise shown in blue, and no agreement in red. So the first item on the list was to reduce the size of the riparian forest, which they agreed to reduce it by 30%. The increase in the size of the flow-through meadow, that was agreed to, which the meadow area was doubled. The increased width of the northern buffer, they wanted it, it was requested to be increased to 300, to be at 300 feet wide, but they increased it by only 100 feet, so they compromised on that issue. The full removal of the agricultural berms, those were agreed to be fully removed. Annual mowing agreement, which was agreed to, and the removal of some eucalyptic trees along the river road, which was also agreed to. A no trespassing barrier along the northern property line, that was agreed to as well. Updated hydraulic analysis, which was performed. The option for a property owner to get the excess soil from the project, which was agreed to. A 5-year maintenance agreement developed, but the county still hasn't endorsed it, but it was agreed to. There was erosion concerns at River Road by Butte County, but they no longer have those concerns. And to design and construct a drainage channel at the grasslands buffer. The request would change the scope of the work and make the project financial and feasible. And then the analysis showed it was not needed, so it was not incorporated. The design and the construction of the drainage channel was not agreed to, and all parties remain at an impasse due to this issue. The subsequent application to the board was submitted in April 2018 and assigned permit number 19320. It was then transmitted to the Army Corps of Engineers for their federal review, and notifications to interested parties were sent out in August 2018. Following 4 protest letters were received the next month. Protest letter dated September 17th, 2018 from Mr. Knock was received. An undated letter from Mr. Mendonca was received around the same time. An emailed letter dated September 17th, 2018 from Ms. Donna Sears with M&T Chico Ranch, which was previously mentioned. They're located 1.5 miles east of the project parcel. We received 2 duplicate copies of that protest letter. Butte County was submitted a protest letter. They was informed that the application was sent for federal review and approval, and they submitted a comment letter dated December 15th, 2023, responding by county department. The agricultural commissioner was the only department that had comments, and their concerns were regarding pesticides, the change in land use, and the impacts to the agricultural production. The agricultural commissioner's office in general does not support the loss of any loss of prime farmland. And board staff responded to Butte County's that the concerns were determined to not be flood related. I go too far. Another public comments received was from Mr. John J. Knock, an adjacent landowner to the east of the parcel, who protested the approval of the project based on the following reasons. He referred to the June 2011 board meeting recommendations to resolve all issues. He requested that the board suspend the application and instruct the applicant to return to the negotiations. He claims that the environmental impact report is over 10 years old and requests the board require a complete review of the entire EIR to ensure it is updated, and questions why the Butte County is not considered a local maintaining agency, and accuses the applicant of avoiding the county land use and flood control concerns, and requests that the board confirm to the applicant that the Butte County is the local maintaining agency. He believed an answer to the board's environmental questionnaire was incomplete due to not addressing the hazard this project possesses to adjacent agricultural lands. He protests that there's no plan for pest control. He states that the work of the tree removal would be in the county right away and would remove roadway stability, and that the applicant should indemnify the county. The use of Manning's roughness coefficients in the hydraulic model and the source of the information were not provided, and charges that not providing the source is to get the preferred outcome. He referenced the hydraulic data used for the previous permit 18576. He stated his concern about silt accumulation due to the land use change. He requested that the board require an independent review of the hydrology and model assumptions. He questioned the updated 2017 hydraulic reports, use of the coefficients for orchards, stated that the numbers used in the model are made up to support the project, stated that portions of his property are excluded from the updated report and does not account for the cumulative flows from Big Chico Creek, and questioned the model's accuracy based on flood events, and request the board to conduct a complete and independent review of the study to ensure accuracy. He questioned if the board is concerned about the project's impacts on the floodplain based on the review of his review of cross-section elevation data from the model, stated that the board needed to require cross-sectional data for the entire flood area per his parameters, and that the board should ensure the project fits into an optimally functional floodplain. Stated that proposed maintenance is inadequate for the sediment removal, and potential sediment accumulation could redirect flood flows, and the board should require a condition to enforce removal of future silt deposits on the applicant's parcel. He requests an enforceable maintenance agreement requirement before issuing the permit, and requested postponement for more time to review materials on September 2018 and November 2023. The board has provided Mr. Knock with a copy of the staff report package provided to the board members for consideration. There has been no other analysis or studies presented showing different results. Another public comment received was with Mr. Mendonca, an adjacent landowner to the north of the project. His he protests the project based on the change in land use, which he states will create an enormous problem for his land. He protests that the flood flow velocities would decrease, which would cause debris accumulation that would redirect flows to his property, causing erosion. He referenced the applicant's southern parcel as an example on impacts to flood channel drainage, and stated not only a flood issue, but also a fire issue to many of the landowners. The updated hydraulic study shows that the changes in velocities mostly occurred through the flow-through meadow. The only decrease in velocity shown was in Mud Creek Channel. The sedimentation analysis done shows sedimentation transport already occurring without the project. M&T Chico Ranch submitted two protest letters. They were duplicate, but they were submitted by different people, by Mrs. Dawn Sears on September 17th, 2018, by mail, and by Mr. Les Herringer Jr., dated September 15th. One was submitted by mail and one received email. Their protest letter sought assurance that there would be no impacts to the private levee along Big Chico Creek, which was located about approximately 1.5 miles away. Asked the board to assure no future impacts on their levee due to the project, or to deny the permit if it can't be shown. He stated that the new Army Corps of Engineers Hamilton City Setback Levee project would heighten the flood flows in the area. He stated that the land use conversion would further restrict flood flows and could threaten their levee along Big Chico Creek. The updated hydraulic analysis does not show any changes in the hydraulics at their private levee, and the board has not been provided any other study or analysis showing different. We have also, at this new, board meeting, we have received additional letters. This time we received a few letters of support as well. Received a few from private citizens, private interest attorney, groundwater agency. So we also received some support letters after the previous board meeting. The following efforts were performed by board staff in preparing the permit for approval. The permit was originally scheduled as a hearing for the November 30th, 2023 board meeting with the hearing notices sent out to the interested party then. It was rescheduled to the December meeting at the executive management's request. Then the December meeting was canceled and it was rescheduled for January 2024. The applicant requested that the hearing be rescheduled to the February meeting due to scheduling. And then it was rescheduled to March meeting at the request of the board council for board staff to seek more input from the county. The interested parties, the February 29, 24 meeting with board staff and Butte County representatives to hear the concerns and provide an opportunity to revise or submit new comments. No new comments were submitted or revised. March 11, 2024, hearing notices were sent to the same interested parties. March 19th, 2024, a postponement request letter was received from Mr. Mendonca. On March 20th, 2024, a continued objection letter was received from M&T Chico Ranch. March 22nd, 2024, the board approved Mr. Mendonca's request to reschedule the hearing to the April 2024 board meeting. At the April 17th, 2024, hearing notices were sent to the interested parties again. And then the hearing was postponed to the May meeting at the request of one of the interested parties. And May 6, 2024, additional hearing notices were sent out for the May board meeting. The interested parties have requested additional time to review the permit package since the initial hearing notices were sent in November 2023. It's not moving. Can you go to the next slide? It's not moving for me. Okay, there it goes. Additionally, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has conducted their federal review on the impacts to the Mud Creek Channel and determined that the post-project conditions will not be injurious to the public works. The review culminated with a letter of permission that will be incorporated into the issued permit. Board Environmental staff reviewed the CEQA notice of determination and found that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment with mitigation measures. Based on staff's analysis of the proposed project, it is recommended that the board take the following actions: adopt the CEQA findings, approve the permit as provided in the staff report, and direct the EO to file the NOD with the state clearinghouse. That concludes my presentation. The department is here or online to answer the questions the board or interested parties may have related to the proposed project. That's it. Thank you.
That concludes, Mr. Negretti.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think the way we have it on the schedule is we're going to go to the applicant presentation next, and then we would do board member questions. If that's okay with everybody. So thank you for that detailed history and analysis for the second time with some additions to the last one. Thank you. Okay, so we have the applicant presentation now.
Yes.
Yep.
Good morning, Vice President Valines, members of the board. My name is Jay Chamberlain, and I am the Chief of the Natural Resources Division for California State Parks. I'm based here in Sacramento. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues that are local to what we call our Northern Buttes District, and I will introduce them in a moment. But first, I'd like to begin by thanking staff. You can tell the work of the staff has been incredible and thorough. And I believe, once again, we were treated to a very thorough presentation and report. I want to also thank this board for its robust discussion at the May meeting. I think it was a very rich discussion, and the direction was clear that we should go and further work to continue to try to find resolution to this work. And in that instance, I want to especially extend my thanks to Vice President Valines and to the staff. Certainly, the staff work and the commitment of the board has gone over and above what I'm used to witnessing in public service. And so I'm very, very grateful for the attention. So I covered a lot in our remarks during the previous, during my May presentation, so I'm not going to revisit all of that. But in deference to some new board members, I'm going to have to touch upon just a few elements. And I'll start with the end in mind, which is, of course, State Parks is seeking concurrence with the staff recommendation and the approval of this permit, as we did in May. So, as I covered back in May, this project restores riparian habitat, would restore riparian habitat on a small but really significant piece of what is now a California state park. And that restoration is of local significance, but by incorporation in a state park, it is of statewide significance. And that is why I'm here today. And it obviously also helps meet the objectives of numerous studies. For example, the Central Valley Flood Protection Conservation Strategy, as we mentioned in the last report, the measurable goals and objectives, this would make a small contribution to the attainment of some of those objectives. And there's a long list that I shared last time of reports and studies and regional reports that this would also help meet those objectives going back to the late 80s. But then coming forward to more recent studies and objectives of this administration, certainly not least of which is conserving 30% of the state's land and coastal waters by 2030 and helping through that effort to achieve our climate and biological diversity goals. This would contribute to it. And to that end, I wanted to just take a moment and acknowledge that we're joined today in the audience by Megan Hertel, who is the Deputy Secretary for Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat at the Natural Resources Agency. And Megan and her colleagues at the Natural Resources Agency have been huge champions for projects like this around the state, supporting state parks in helping achieve these statewide goals that we've all embraced. So many thanks to Megan and her colleagues. So you've already heard, I don't want to repeat the extensive staff report, but I do need to draw attention to just a few items. Importantly, and perhaps first and foremost, the conclusions of the flood board staff concur with the conclusion of state parks technical specialists over the years that this project meets all applicable Title 23 standards and will have a negligible impact on flood flows on adjacent properties and will not increase sediment transport. You heard that testimony, you heard that definitive determination by the board staff. We certainly concur with that, and we've had the concurrence from numerous other state and federal agencies, but the Army Corps of Engineers certainly stands out as an important one in that regard. Staff have also spoken about the extensive work that has happened over many years, in the 16 years since this first permit for restoration at this property came to this board. And I think they did an able job. We didn't draw perhaps as much attention to all the changes that have been made to this project over the 16 years since we first came to this board. But I think staff certainly amply went through the long list of changes and modifications that have been made. And I want to, we can talk about how we've changed that. We've limited the size, the scope of the original restoration, which, by the way, we would have believed would have also attained these flood benefits. But we've made modifications, many modifications that have already been attested to increase to increase the flood flows, but also to meet local issues that have been raised locally. And so I think that is what I really want to draw your attention to. Folks who watched the last board meeting could be forgiven by making a conclusion that State Parks has not worked very hard on this. But I think that really strange credulity when you look at the staff report. We've been at the table for many, many years to understand, learn from the local concerns, and to meet all credible concerns that we can within the scope of a project that is really fundamentally driven by the need to increase riparian habitat restoration in the floodway to meet the goals of the plans that I've already referenced. So we've worked very, very hard over many years to do that. And I think we've done that with professionalism, with tact, and with a true collaborative spirit of engaging our neighbors and certainly the county and working through and understanding their issues. That continued since the last board meeting, and I thank you and certainly thank Vice President Valines and President Dolan for their going to the property and for looking more and more into these issues. We had numerous conversations. There were a number of issues that were raised that we explored. While we didn't come to some massive change and transformation of the scope of this, there certainly are some interesting ideas that we believe we can continue to improve the project. For example, there's a lot of discussion about 300 feet or not having activity within 300 feet of the property line. We agreed in principle to reroute our trail that is just certainly designed right now, just a very sort of conceptual design, that it will not come within 300 feet of that boundary. There was a lot of discussion about the role of the eucalyptus trees that you may recall. And we leaned in on that conversation, I think willing to do whatever was appropriate. But when the county sort of demurred in having an opinion about it, we saw no reason to change the scope of what was proposed. But what I am here to say today is that if we are able to secure this permit and move into implementation, our door remains open. We are very open to continuing the conversation certainly with the county and certainly with our neighbors to what modifications we can continue to consider within the scope of the approved permit. So discussions about signage that would ensure that visitors, that if there are visitors to this property, they don't impact our neighbors. Conversations of any variety that are, as I say, within the scope of this, our door remains open and we will stay at the table. We've demonstrated that for nearly 20 years at this point. So with that, and I don't want to belabor things because I think there's a robust continuation of the discussion to be had, but restored sites such as the one we're talking about play an important role in these statewide and local plans that I've already described, but they also provide areas for underserved communities to come to the river and experience these important habitats. It is something we'd love to do here at this site, which is part of a state park, like we do around the rest of the state. And I regard our work, and our locals, I certainly could attest to this, we always attempt to be good neighbors. We attempt to understand the interests of our neighbors, often needing to translate issues that are statewide objectives that are our statutory requirements into language that can work for our neighbors and help them understand and hopefully come to a mutual agreement on the things that we can do to address our mutual concerns. And we will continue to do that. I also want to just take a moment, especially in light of the conversations that happened at the last meeting, to just remind this board that many of our staff that are here today are members of this community. They live in Chico or elsewhere in Butte County. They have a very strong interest in the success of this project as members of those communities. And certainly State Parks is also in the long-term business. Our statutes require us to maintain and restore habitats for the benefit of the public, but also for the benefit of future generations. So we really truly are in the long-term game, and we stand ready and committed to ensuring the success of this restoration project over the long term. It is an intergenerational commitment that is unique in state law, but we honor it, and it is part of the culture of state parks. So after more than 20 years of planning, discussions, and refinements, we respectfully ask for your aye vote and for your approval of this permit. And, I can just say, even if we end up not agreeing on absolutely everything in the days to come, years to come, we stand ready to continue to compromise. This project before you reflects that compromise attained over many years, and we are committed to that path. So with that, I just want to briefly introduce the staff that are here to respond to your questions as we move through this. That's our district superintendent, Matt Teague, senior environmental scientist, Matt Ryan, I'm sorry, Ryan Martin, senior environmental scientist, Trish Ladd, environmental program manager, Ron Melser, and myself. We're here today. And I just am extremely excited to address any questions that this board has. There's a lot of information, as you can tell, about this project. We stand ready to answer any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain, for that presentation. I think following the agenda, what we'll do right now then is go to board member questions for staff and for you. And then we will go to public comment. So don't, we haven't forgotten you. I know, Mr. Negretti, you mentioned there was a couple letters of support to come in. There have been some in opposition too. And Mr. Leaf will discuss that right before we start the public comment. So you probably both should stand by close. And I'd like to open it to the board for any questions that they might have. Okay. I was going to say, we'll roll. Mr. Countryman.
I just want for the record, board staff has found that this project will not impact any of the levees in that area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you found that the project impacts that do exist are all on the applicant's property.
Yes,
And they
that's-
don't extend to adjoining properties either upstream or to the east of the project. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And the increase in water surface elevation and velocities are all attenuated within the applicant's properties.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. So, and I neglected to say, is just so, after we do the public comment, we have a specific line item that says comments by any interested parties opposed to the project. So we haven't forgotten anybody involved. So we will turn it over to public comment. Mr. Leaf, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you. So I just wanted to summarize that we received several letters regarding this project leading up to this board meeting. We received letters of support from Marty Dunlap, Butte Groundwater, and today we just received a letter from Altacal Audubon Society, all of which have been or will be distributed to the board. We also received a letter of opposition from the Butte County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Leaf. So we've gone through the board member questions. It's now public comment. If there's anybody that wants to make a public comment. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to say public comment opposed first. Sorry about that. So is there anybody with public comments that are opposed to the project or have concerns they want to mention? We should check online.
We do have 2 hands raised online. John's iPhone is first.
Okay, so John's iPhone.
This
will
is
go
John.
first.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Vice President Valines. My name is John Knock. I'm sorry I couldn't join you today at your meeting. I'd like to start by thanking the board for giving us this pause, an opportunity for you, Vice President, and staff to visit the site and give some consideration to this project that's been going on for so long. I appreciate the thought of the board that we might reach some compromise at our meeting that the county facilitated at their facility. It became clear to me that there wasn't a lot of room for discussion. Mr. Teague from State Parks made it clear that the only things they would consider are things that would not change their permit. They weren't going to do anything regarding changing anything in the permit request. I think Mr. Chamberlain, in all the things he had to say, said that they're ready for compromise, but that's within the walls of the permit request. That bit was very limiting to discussion with the limited time. I could only recall asking for one thing. That wasn't what I came to the meeting for, to have a discussion. But the one thing I did request was regarding the barrier, as it's being called in your report. Your staff, on the staff report, it said that that's something of an agreement, and that is absolutely untrue. What we agreed to was a barrier on the south side of the meadow, not on the north side of the meadow. A south side barrier would have served as a physical barrier to the extension of the trails. Of course, state parks, over the years after we stopped meeting, unilaterally changed that. I brought that up at the meeting, and Mr. Teague, speaking for state parks, with knowledge, with an understanding of what I was saying, and I assume with the paperwork that showed that we had reached agreement on this, because he actually said at the prior meeting of how many items we'd made agreement. He iterated how important it was that it be on the north. So even at our meeting where we came for resolution, they were unwilling, even confronted with what we had agreed to go along with what they had agreed to. The last thing I have to say about that meeting is Vice President Belines asked a very interesting question that I was unsatisfied with the response. Mr. Vice President Belines asked about if state parks had received a permit regarding their work on the adjoining parcel. And Mr. Teague did say that they had gotten a permit, which is true, but their permit only regarded the items that they changed that were covered by their negative declaration. And I'm sure someone there for state parks is going to tell you with specificity what was covered, but it's my recollection that it was the creation of the parking lot, the boat launch, the planting of around 50 plants. And on your trip, Mr. Belines, I'm sure you saw more than 50 plants. What they did was they allowed nature to take its course. None of that was modeled. None of that is designed. That is the underlying obstacle to which we have a problem with regarding the current project. State Parks continues to want to view these things as separate issues. They're one giant barrier to flood flows that we would like considered together. And Mr. Belines, you asked an important question that, in my opinion, you didn't get an accurate response to. And it should have been responded to differently so that could be drawn out in the discussion. I continue to have concerns about the hydrologic study. I did since we parted ways in May, have an opportunity to have a thoughtful conversation with staff and came to understand a little more about the hydrologic study. I'm still concerned about it because you keep referring to design flows, and these are not our experienced flows. In my lifetime, we've owned the property since '74. We've never seen flood flows go over the Mud Creek levee. The highest we've ever seen is flows that reach about a foot below the Mud Creek levee. Now, why is that important? Because in normal times, the highest flow events are constrained on the western side of the Mud Creek levee. We don't know, specifically you don't know, how that affects velocity, because what you do is you use a design flow, a hypothetical, never before experienced flow in this area. And so basically you show a very wide pipe and a big flow, but you don't know what it would happen in the conditions that actually we've experienced in high flows. So therefore, and I asked if we could have that, to which your staff responded, applicants are not required to do anything different than the design flow. I also asked for information to be presented that would have shown the extent of flooding if the design flow were to occur. Now, staff told me in an email that the levee along Big Chico Creek, I refer to it as the M&T levee because it keeps M&T dry on the southern edge of Mud Creek. That levee is 1 to 3 feet higher than the Mud Creek levee. That is a very concerning statement as far as I'm concerned, because the elevation of that levee should be known. And if it's 1 to 3 feet over the Mud Creek levee and the design flows show water going over the Mud Creek levee by 3 feet, then the water is going to be going into all over the M&T ranch. But more importantly, my property is basically under the back. We get flooded because the elevations rise. The design that you were showing, the design that's been in this report for I don't know how many, is almost 2 decades, shows flows ending or flooding ending along West Sacramento Avenue. That would be around 4 feet lower than design flows. And it's kind of stunning to me that an error that large has existed in your reports for this long without any notation. And it's kind of surprising to me that I went to law school. I'm not a hydrologist. That I'm bringing an error like this to your attention so late in this process. Without properly noting basically what you've modeled here is a very wide pipe with a hypothetical flow that we've never experienced. And by not showing the extent of the flooding, you really didn't put the public on notice about how big the flows were supposed to be, because you only show extensive flooding that would be under current high flooding conditions. I believe there's an error in your reasoning. I did say something that probably didn't get noticed at the meeting that we had in Sacramento, in Chico, and that probably wasn't noticed as a compromise on my part. I'm a farmer, and I need this property to work too. I need water to be conveyed over that property. And my compromise that I offered, and Mr. Mendonça told me he would agree in joining to embrace a habitat project on this property. And I can't tell you what a stretch that is for both of us. But what we're seeking is open grasslands. And the reason that we're seeking open grasslands is to maximize the conveyance across that property, recognizing that the Peterson unit, the property immediately to the south of the property, has never been modeled, never been designed for flows, and that creates a pre-existing condition that will not be changed. I ask you today to deny this permit request so that we might seek common ground by seeking higher ground with a better, improved habitat project that allows maximum flows across this property as an open grasslands project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knock. Appreciate your comments. Good to hear your voice again. I think. Oh, There's another online comment.
Yes, we have another hand raised online, Patrizia.
Okay, well, let's,
Thank
should we do,
you.
we'll
My
do
name
the board questions right
is
after.
Hieronymus. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. My name's Patrizia Hieronymus. I'm the Executive Director of Butte Environmental Council, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I just would encourage you to approve this project based on the letters from Groundwater for Butte, Marty Dunlap, and Altacal Audubon. There's significant benefits for our ecosystem in this project, restoration project, and I encourage you to read through the letters of support and do the right thing to our environment and our ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So I'd like to do just a quick board member question because Mr. Countryman had one that I think was related to what happened. So go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Knox, I'm not understanding you. You're saying that you're requesting a barrier on the south side of this property? For what purpose?
I'm not sure that Mr. Knock is still on. Is he still on? Great, Mr. Knock,
Yeah,
you might. Perfect.
I'm on.
Perfect.
I'm on. It takes a moment to reconnect.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm glad you're on. Did you hear the
so-
question?
Yes. Okay. So when we were discussing this project, how, gosh, it's probably this goes back probably 10 years ago. We went through years of quarterly meetings, beginning with a facilitator and then just state with state parks, the county of Butte, and the local neighbors, neighboring property owners. We tried to reach an agreement, and regarding the barrier, we were looking to keep the trails and the people who would be because they're looking for recreation on a state parks property, and they're putting this next to agriculture. It was the interest of neighboring agriculture to keep the people on the trails or who might veer off the trails inside of state parks. So we were consistently asking for the barrier. We didn't see this as a vehicle barrier. We wanted a barrier, a physical barrier that it's clear that visitors to state parks stay within state parks. And that would be, and it was part of our discussion that those trails would then be within that barrier that would be south of the grasslands. I mean, right now, state parks is offering as a compromise to hold, take the trails out of the grasslands. Well, they weren't in the grasslands when we were talking to state parks years ago. This is something they added during that quiet period that when they cut off discussions with us and then started talking to you about the permit or your staff. They've changed what the deal was, and they've presented it to you like we agreed to it. And now
Excuse me. What's not making sense to me is the south. Are you talking about the south side end of the property?
No, I'm saying the south side of the open grasslands.
That's where you
on the property, because they were going to.
That's where you say you want a barrier.
That's where the idea of the barrier from the neighbor's point of view was that the barrier was to keep the people on foot out of the neighbor's property. That was
it had nothing to do with the hydraulics or the flow functioning of the property. This is strictly
actually
control of the hikers. Is that correct?
Actually, it did. We thought that putting a barrier near the property line, we think a barrier is going to be catching flood debris. But please understand, our request was 300 feet of open grasslands, and at the other side of it would be the barrier. So if you had the barrier catching flood debris, it would be 300 feet and not just a few feet off the property line, as the project proponent now proposes to you.
Okay.
So no, I'm glad you brought it up. We did have it as a flood concern also. But yeah.
And just for verification, how often does your property flood currently?
How often does our property flood currently? I would say our property from some source would have water on it maybe every couple of years.
That's what I was thinking. So it's not that you're concerned that this project is going to put water on your property, because you're already receiving water. Is that correct?
Actually, my concern mostly is about the velocities and the redirected velocities and of this project. It's the velocity of flood flows that can cause scouring.
And that's been studied with the now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Countryman. Mr. Knock, do you want to conclude your thought on that? Sounds like you're finishing a thought.
Well, I mean, I did. Mr. Countryman's, of course, he's on your board and he's entitled to his opinion. Yes, it has been studied, but I have been consistent in proposing that the study is erroneous regarding well, not it does not address the experience conditions. These are the conditions, the design flow conditions are hypothetical, never experienced in my lifetime, and I'm 57 years old, flood flows. And you by approving this project based on this study, you're approving a project without knowledge of how we actually live in that neighborhood, and because you're showing a very wide pipe and you don't show the constrained conditions, because the Mud Creek levee is a physical constraint that in every year during my lifetime has kept the flow of the Sacramento River to the west of that. So your design shows something that just doesn't experience in normal times. So when you're basing your decision on it, you don't know what you're deciding. You don't know what the velocities will be. You don't know. It's been studied, but you don't know what it's telling you.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Knock. Appreciate that. I'm glad you guys, I want to make sure you're both able to finish your thoughts. So our goal is to continue now with public comment by interested parties that are opposed to the project. So do we have any other opposition in the crowd or online that wants to talk about in opposition to the project? Anybody online?
There's a hand raised online. Emily Alma.
What's the last name?
Alma.
Palma. Miss Palma, are you opposed?
No, I'm not. But
do you mind hanging tight for a little bit?
I'm fine. But
great.
Patricia was starting to talk before this, and she's also supporting the project.
Okay, we're going to get to that. Thank you. Point of order, wasn't the state parks to respond to the... That's literally what we're just talking about. Good point of order. So to answer your point of order, yes, I believe what we wanted to do was have it says here on the agenda, rebuttal by applicant. So I think maybe what I'd like to do is start with staff first. Mr. Negretti, if that works for you. I know there was a specific question you might want to address, and then we would go to parks. Does that work? Great, go ahead.
Okay, I know that Mr. Knock had a concern regarding the hydraulic report. I didn't quite understand his specific concern. He said there was an error in it. All I can really say is the hydraulics is based on the Sacramento River designated floodway limits, which have been mapped. So these are the ones that the study used, and as the board, what we review are the impacts to the flood system. So it's to the entire system, not just localized impacts. And so that's what the report said, and that's what we studied, and that's what we concluded our impacts on. I don't know if we can repeat his question. I can answer it more specifically.
I think we're good. You'd addressed it. His comment was about in his opinion, the two decades of flows, it might have a 4-foot difference. But what you're saying is your studies don't show that.
The DF flows, because he was concerned most with the real world, as he calls them, flows, the ones that they experience. Those are the ones he wants to see the impacts to, but we do the impacts to the design flood flows, not the intermediate ones.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Dua?
Thank you. Excuse me, Vice President Valines. Just for point of clarification, so the board and the public is aware, staff's obligation is to review the applicant's submittal along with all the analysis and reports that are submitted along with the application. If there's an opposing opinion or opposition to that, then it is the opposing party's obligation to provide some other evidence that speaks against that. So obviously, we've heard anecdotal evidence of flooding, but there's nothing for the board staff to rely on or analyze unless they do their own studies and submit those to the board in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Dua. So I think this would be appropriate time for the applicant for Parks to come up and any rebutting. Can you just identify yourself when you start? Good to see you.
Vice President Valines, board staff, our board members, I appreciate this opportunity, just ditto Jay, especially the communication of the staff during this whole 16+ year process. Special thanks to staff member, Mr. Negrete here. He's been exceptional when it comes to communication, and that's really helped the process. I don't know if you can hear me. Matt Teague, District Superintendent for Northern Buttes District. You know, Jay, as he mentioned and introduced himself, he's the Chief of Natural Resource Divisions. My job is operations, so we're the nuts and bolts on the field. Just want to say that with the staff introductions and my staff and my colleagues that we work with, we're the public-facing folks here in the field. We're a public service agency or a public law enforcement agency as well. We engage with the county and other cities in the area with the incidents we have almost on a daily basis. So I just wanted to add that. I know it's not part of the rebuttal. Sticking to flood related, as far as rebuttal and going off of Mr. Knox's presentation, I think I just need to address, just for clarification purposes, address the previous permits on the Peterson property. I don't know if it's necessary, but just to, I was personally involved in that project 15, 16 years ago. We did get Reclamation Board permits. We got Army Corps permits with the hydraulic analysis, and as well as the wetland delineation. Back then, when Reclamation Board existed, we obtained those permits for everything that was developed on that property, including the gravel days parking lot, the boat ramp, as Mr. Knock mentioned, as well as small little, I don't know how many acres, I can't quote that, but restoration plots on that land. Anything else that was not restored was not permitted. It wasn't a change in use. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think the other thing is just to emphasize the compromise. I think all parties in this 16-year, process there's been a lot of compromise, and I share a little confusion with the barrier. I'll kind of leave that alone right now, but I think that I could say that that's part of that compromise in this long process. So, and I stand here for any other questions or clarifications if necessary.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So what we're gonna do now is, I think we're moving down to here, right? So any other interested parties, either in support or in opposition, but hang tight. I know you've been up and down 3 or 4 times. You're a good friend of mine too. I feel bad. You're getting your squats in, but we're gonna go to what's on the written paper. Well, it's Michael, so we're good. So we'll start with Mr. Gerald. So it is you. You're the first one written. I thought you were just popping up.
But yeah, no, getting my exercise
Thanks
in.
for your patience.
Michael Jared, the Associate Director with the Nature Conservancy. We would urge you to follow your staff recommendation and approve this permit. We think that the project provides really important habitat, recreation, and flood control benefits. We really appreciate that State Parks is willing to actively manage the property, willing to be a good neighbor, and we think that the time has come for this to move forward and for the state to complete this project. So we hope you'll approve it today.
Thank you for your patience and for your comments. I believe Mr. Geiser is next.
Let's see. Good morning, everyone. You might recognize me from May. I made the drive down from Chico in May, and I made the drive down this morning because this project is of serious significance to my community and my organization, which is the Alta-Cal Audubon Society. Our mission is to protect birds and their habitats, and also promote the public interest and help people get outside. And so we are especially excited that State Park.
I'm sorry to interrupt you
Yeah.
because your enthusiasm is going great. I just need you to identify your name, even though I said it. I was just told.
My name is Jared Geiser.
Thank you. Appreciate
With
it.
the Alta-Cal Audubon Society Executive Director. And I'm making a public comment on behalf of that organization today. And so we urge the Flood Board to approve this permit and allow the state parks to do their job. Allow the state parks to do the tricky job of implementing statewide legislation, statewide initiatives that try to make sure that we can actually protect and restore biodiversity, expand access to nature, and mitigate and build resilience to climate change. And the 30 by 30 initiative of the state of California has those goals, and this project is what that looks like. This is how we start to implement our climate action, how we implement biodiversity enhancements and restoring that, and how we can expand access to nature for people in our communities. And so, yeah, there are tons of public benefits for this project, including improving ecosystem function by reducing groundwater use, providing more contiguous habitat corridors along these riparian areas, as well as increasing habitat for pollinators and wildlife, and endangered species such as the yellow-billed cuckoo, a bird species who depends on riparian habitat, whose suffering in California is listed as endangered by CDFW because we've lost 90% of riparian habitat in California. And projects like this would help enhance the habitat for this endangered species and for the whole web of life that, that lives in the riparian ecosystems, which are very abundant and biodiverse ecosystems. And so the providing of increased natural habitat is a public benefit, as well as the removing of non-native invasive tree species, providing additional public access by extending a trail and connecting the trail system and the existing Big Chico Creek Access Park would significantly almost double the acreage of that public park that serves as a valuable asset to the community of Chico and Butte County and everyone in the surrounding area. It really is an asset. And 43 more acres would really enhance that for the public. Also crucially is the benefit to the public of restoring a natural floodplain, which is predicted to have negligible impacts to the flood system. So we have these activities would be allowing a place for floodwaters to disperse that will not impact the personal livelihoods of any neighbors, but will benefit the entire flood system and could help with groundwater recharge. So Alta-Cal believes the restoration of this property will help the community, help the wildlife, and by replacing this old walnut grove with native riparian plants that won't need irrigation for the long haul, there's additional benefits there too. And so State Parks has examples of success. The Pine Creek access just up the road a few miles at the confluence of Pine Creek and Sacramento River, there's a beautiful restoration project there, about 20 acres, I believe, called the Brayton Restoration Project. It was a similar thing. It was an old walnut orchard They removed it with river partners. They came in and planted native riparian vegetation. And just after 4 years, we've seen substantial growth. We've seen Alta Cal, my organization, leads birding trips out there. I think once a month, usually we lead one out there at Pine Creek Access. And we've seen the bird populations increase over the last 4 years as the riparian vegetation has matured and the restoration has been able to occur. So we urge you guys to approve this project, to let the state parks do their job and not further delay this, because you know, if these trees would have been planted 16 years ago, if this meadow would have been restored on this Sing property 16 years ago, we would be seeing the public benefits already. And so the further delay of this is delaying the benefits to the ecosystem and the benefits to the public. And so, yes, I urge you to adopt your staff recommendation. And I want to bring attention to the staff recommendation, which says that the CEQA findings and proposed work under permit 19320 will not result in any significant adverse impacts related to flood risk, and no additional mitigation measures are within the board's jurisdiction. So we urge you to approve this permit and let the state parks do this amazing restoration project for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brislane?
Thank you. My name's Greg Brislane. I'm not affiliated with any of the organizations that you would have come before you. I'm just a citizen that's lived in Chico for 50 years. I'm a retired attorney. I didn't practice water law. I practiced family law and criminal defense. But as I retired, the interest of water in our area got my attention, and it has even for several years, but now I have time to put into it. I just want to read my letter to you in case you didn't get it. And the reason I'm reading the letter is the Board of Supervisors of Butte County wrote you on August 13, and they are suggesting to you that they have some doubts about removing 43 acres from prime agricultural farmland. I walked the project 2 nights ago. Those trees on the Mendonca property are coming out. They're old, they're non-productive. They got to come out. Parks and Recreation, as I understand it, will be taking them out. Here's my letter. Dear Mr. Knapp and CVFC Board, this letter is in support of permit 19320 on the agenda tomorrow. That permit will enable Butte County to take the first step, task 1 of the Recharge Action Plan, we call it an RAP, unanimously adopted by the Butte County Board of Supervisors in March. Task 1 contemplates pilot programs, data collection and analysis, as well as constant monitoring. It also includes strategic steps to benefit the sorely depleted Tuscan aquifer starting now. There's a deficit of 550,000 acre feet. The best that we've estimated, and I shouldn't say we, the best that the interested scientists have come up with is reducing that by only 20,000 acre feet a year. Do the math. The board received a letter dated August 13 from the Butte County Board of Supervisors purportedly reaffirming the board's, quote, long-standing opposition to this project, end quote. They're walking back their unanimous vote to support this well thought out recharge action plan. They've signed grant contracts. They've been informed by your staff that 11 plus out of 12 project remediation demands have been met. They're counting on indifference and delay at this point. Fortunately, citizens are starting to take note and are becoming aware that water systems are not being recharged and the RAP is being neutered before any action gets underway. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Are there any other public interested parties opposed or support of the project? None in the room? Online?
We have Emily Alma online.
Go ahead. What was the last name again?
I'm Emily Alma. I just unmuted myself.
Perfect. Please go ahead. Thanks for your patience.
Well, thank you. I also submitted a letter. I'm the coordinator for a small citizens organization in Chico, Butte County called Groundwater for Butte. And we formed specifically to defend and advocate for preserving our groundwater and using it as thoughtfully and environmentally appropriately as we can. So I'm speaking from that point of view, and I can't counter the arguments from the adjacent farmer. That's not in where I understand how things work, but I think you folks can deal with that. I can't respond to what he said because I don't have that kind of knowledge. But what I do know is that we in the Vina subbasin, which this property is part of, there has been an overdrawing of groundwater for the last several years, and there's an effort being made to change that situation so that we have dependable groundwater and there's not a loss of groundwater for groundwater dependent farms, as well as the groundwater dependent ecosystem and people who have domestic wells, which I live on a small 12-acre farm, which is dependent on a shallow well. In any case, the purpose of this, besides enhancing riparian habitat, would be to take agricultural land out of production that would be drawing on groundwater. So it's a small piece of property. It's, 43 acres is not significant agriculturally in this community, but it's quite significant from the point of view of the ecosystem. And once the walnut trees are pulled out and the new native plants established in a native ecosystem, they will no longer be drawing on groundwater, but will be enhancing, increasing the groundwater levels. So that will enhance the adjacent farms. And it doesn't seem that there's any need for this ag versus environment. They're interrelated and interdependent. And I think it's a wonderful project. I also walked the property a couple of days ago and saw how easily it could become riparian ecosystem that would be a benefit to farmers as well as to recreationists and certainly to the ecosystem. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any more online hands?
We have Julie Rentner.
Ms. Retner?
Good morning, board. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to address you this morning. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but my name is Julie Rentner, and I'm the president of River Partners, a nonprofit that works in the Central Valley flood system extensively on habitat restoration projects. We aren't specifically connected to this project, but I'm speaking in support of it today. At our organization, we are farmers at heart. We farm thousands of acres actually across the Central Valley today. As you all know, we've worked successfully on many encroachment permits over the years, over the last couple of decades, for projects a lot like this one. We've always thought of farming and ecosystem restoration as allied, linked, connected, supportive. And so it's challenging to listen to the conversation today. I also don't envy you all the tasks of bringing together considerations around agricultural productivity, recreational development, groundwater management, endangered species recovery, local government ordinance, and your role as the flood board to permit encroachments into the designated floodway. I just wanted to make a couple of comments that I think might be helpful at this moment as the conversation continues. One that I haven't heard yet well described in the meeting is that State Parks has a history on this in this localized area of performing significant vegetation maintenance on their properties. And I know it's been brought up in discussion on this project in the past that perhaps the parcels in the area have not been maintained. And so I know that as the board staff and board members took interest in looking at this property, I'd love to hear, or, just raise the idea that there's been some observations about maintenance of the parcels in recent years. I've also learned from state park staff about significant investments that have been made over the years in clearing debris and clearing vegetation on parcels in this area. And so I just wanted to make sure that it's clear, in the room that that is happening. It's not something that State Parks has not been an active maintainer of their lands in the area. I'm also hearing and you guys all know this as board members, but I'm hearing some significant challenges around the differences between, the board's authorities to look at design floods and other kinds of hydrologic impacts that might be associated with projects. And this is not, an issue that doesn't come up in many hydrologic analyses of projects, that I've observed in other parts of the Central Valley. So I thought it might be wise to spend a little bit of time talking about that issue because it seems to be maybe a little bit of a root of some of the lack of clarity here today. And then the final point I wanted to make is that, you're doing amazing work. I can even hear it through the Zoom line to be very considerate of, a very long history. And I'm sure there's a lot of frustration in the room on all sides of this, a very long history to try to reach agreement and compromise to move this project forward. And I just wanted to say that delays in processing the paperwork on real world improvements in our flood system are what lead to lots of problems around abandonment and things falling into decay and deferred maintenance that wind up being much more expensive in the future. So I want to encourage you to take action today to make a decision because the folks in the room have waited a long time for this moment. And I certainly think that the diligence seems thorough. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else online?
Yes, we have Marty Dunlap.
Mr. Dunlap? I'm assuming it's a Mr. Dunlap.
Hi, actually it's a
Totally sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
You got me.
Yeah, that's okay. I have submitted a letter to the board, and so I'm not going to reiterate those points. But I am just going to speak briefly in support of approving this permit. I am a public interest attorney, have been following water issues in Butte County for quite a few years now. And I have read the staff report that was presented today in summary prior to your meeting. I think that the issues that have been raised by the Butte County Board of Supervisors and adjoining neighbors have been addressed and reasonably resolved by the applicant. It seems like the sticking point is taking the 43 prime agricultural acres out of production. And it just seems to me that this 43 acres is only 0.02% of the Vina subbasin, which is the area that we're concerned about in terms of groundwater. So it's a negligible amount. Allowing a state-owned land to restore a riparian corridor falls under reasonable management for flooding and is in concurrence with the Butte County Recharge Action Plan to utilize flooding waters for natural recharge to address a deficit in the use of groundwater which is the main source of water for both agricultural and domestic use in Butte County. So I urge you to approve this permit today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else online?
We have Emily Morris.
Emily?
Yes, hello. My name's Emily Morris. I'm just speaking as a member of the community. These unique natural areas, it's my opinion that they're invaluable. They provide opportunities for recreation, education, and conservation. I'm just, again, speaking as a member of the community, coming from a perspective that as the Chico community grows and we have an increase in population, these areas that we use for recreation are very important to us, and an expanse of that would definitely be a benefit to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else online?
There are no more hands raised online.
Okay, back to,
Second, Kathy Faith is online with their hand raised.
great. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Faith. I'm also an interested community member of Butte County. And I just want to really, I salute all of you for this journey that you've been going on. And it's such a model for so many things, you know, as far as water and, but mostly so many interested parties, like all of you working together. It's just, I mean, I know maybe you don't feel like you're working together, but in fact, that's what it's coming out to be. And it's very impressive. And I do understand the neighbor farmer who does not want, you know, the community want, or the public wandering onto his property. I understand that. It seems like the flood issues are taken care of, but my interest is in the natural recharge that can happen for our aquifer. And I just ditto what Emily Alma said. And also I can't remember the woman who just came on and also saluted the work you're doing. So thank you very much. And I definitely support the project.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have anybody else?
That was the last hand.
Okay. Are there any additional board member questions? Moving back to board member questions. Mary Jane?
Thank you.
Board member Grego.
Thank you, yeah, Mary Jane Grego. I just want to kind of go back to the May meeting and I want to thank our staff and our board members for accommodating my request of allowing these parties to come together and try to hammer out some resolution coming back to this meeting. And I was hoping for, you know, consensus on this permit, that there would be more, you know, agreeable terms. But they're just as complicated as they were in May. And the fact that this project has been going on for 16 years, it just tells you how difficult it is to have these kind of projects when you have farming operations. And I'm going to give you a Yuba County example, just something that happened just recently. The work that was being done on behalf of flood control in the river bottoms, the Board of Supervisors just shut down the public access to a beach out there. And the reason why is because it was actually shut down because of the farmers. The farmers said, we do not want the public out there. They are invading our operation. They are causing us a lot of money because of the public, you know, not being responsible. And there isn't a public park out there, you know, maintainer. It's just the local county that's doing this. And so they're limited in resources and money in regards to being able to have oversight. And the sheriff, of course, is frustrated because he can't put a lot of deputies out there. There's just not the resources to do that. So when you look at these kind of land use compatibilities, they're difficult, especially when you have independent farmers that want to be able to farm the way they want to farm without the public, interfering in that. And so I understand their point of view. I'm a independent small business person. I understand, that there are limitations out there when you have not the best situation. And I want to be considerate of that, that situation. But I'm also a proponent of parks and open space and recreation. Those are opportunities for the public to go out and enjoy what we have and what makes the North State so valuable and why we live here. I guess my question for Board Member Valines is, you were at that meeting that took place, and I would like to hear your feelings about how that went. I mean, was there real limitation, as I heard from one of the farmers there, that it was just, we're looking at this and this is it, and we're not going to expand it? Or was there more of an open agreement to try to work this out and hammer these issues out? I'm asking the question because, I want to take a vote today. I want to get this done. 16 years is a long time, but I also know that this issue, even once the permit is over, it's not over. It's not over. And I guess my next question will be to legal, because we're setting a precedence here. We're setting a record here for whatever legal action takes place after this. And so I don't think a judge would look at this that we made decisions hastily. I wasn't here for 16 years. I don't think any of us were here for 16 years. Maybe Joe, I don't know. Were you here 16 years ago? 12 years ago. So, none of us were here at the time that this project came around. And so, but it's long overdue for action. And so if you would just explain to me your interpretation of that meeting and how it went.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Do you mind if I flip it and have legal answer your second question, but at the same time, you could tell me, am I allowed to just share my opinion from the meeting I had? I'm always careful because I always feel like we're not allowed to do something. So you can let me know what I can say.
You want me to go forward and answer, board member? Great. Yeah, certainly. Well, it's a bit speculative, because we haven't received notice or any indication that, anyone would file, based on the board's decision. But the standard to overturn a board decision or set aside is it's got to be arbitrary and capricious. So if the board is acting obviously in good faith and based on the evidence that's presented before them, generally the courts will defer to a board or commission's decision.
And so just to follow up on that, one of the reference that was made is that this environmental document is over 10 years old. Would that play into that decision?
Not necessarily. If the project hasn't changed, if there was some type of change in the project, that they'd obviously have to make their arguments based in CEQA. But again, it's speculative until we would see. So it's really fact dependent. I can't honestly answer that question clearly for you.
Well, I was going to say, because it wouldn't have an expiration date if that was the case. And so that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
And then to answer your question, yeah, I attended the meeting. Mr. Leaf was there. We had some other staff there. It was hosted by 2 county board of supervisors. We had Farm Bureau, we had Parks, we had Mr. Knock. And there's probably a few others that I'm not remembering. I actually thought it was a very robust conversation. We were there for a pretty good amount of time. It seemed to me that everybody was trying to find a way to work things out. I didn't really hear any strong opposition from anybody. Mr. Knock had some very clear concerns in opposition, but he didn't even treat him like opposition. I felt it was a good discussion, is what I'm trying to say. I walked away from there thinking what you did, which is I wish we had a little more clarity on compromise, but I think it's just hard to find that. But there was a lot of discussion from Parks and from Mr. Knock about the barriers and where the south one, limiting people from walking on the property, all kinds of issues like that. And my takeaway was that Parks understood that what the concern was, that, they have a lot they can still do, and they're going to attempt to do that in terms of keeping people off the property as best they can. And so I walked away a little bit positive, thinking that at least we had a lot more daylight on the issue. But it was definitely a very robust discussion.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Because of law, we're not able to attend those meetings because you can only have so many board members at one specific meeting but I appreciate that. The other thing too is, looking at this permit, I mean, I looked at the Army Corps of Engineers August 19th, 22 permit. They have conditions from A to Z on here. And I'm wondering, none of that had any impact on the budgetary issues of this project? I mean, there's a lot there, and there's a lot of monitoring that goes along with it. Some of it consistent to with some of the arguments I've heard today and then in May. And so I don't know if the board would be interested in anything to condition this permit with in regards to trying to keep the open communications between the neighbors and the applicant. But I'm just throwing it out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Are there any other board comments?
Comments, not questions. We're in the comments now.
It says the additional board member questions, and then it says close public comments and go to discussion. So if there's no questions, we'll go to comments. I think at this point, we'll close public discussion and move back to board discussion. So I think it's a perfect time and appropriate for you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for the presentations and the analysis. I think it's very clear. These are challenging sometimes. Often we see projects out there that have strong feelings and questions to be balanced. As far as it relates to our jurisdiction, though, the answer here to me is extremely clear. I'll be voting to approve this. And I'll be voting to approve it, and I'll be happy to make the motion because the analysis done over many, many years with a lot of money and time and good faith effort concluded that the project is not anticipated to result in any adverse effects on facilities of the state plan or flood control or adjoining neighbors. And in fact, the project will provide a greater flood conveyance potential to pass any increased flows that may result from future events such as climate change. And I have a lot more that I could say if the discussion goes this direction for why I also believe that it's a very good project, why I'm grateful for the work that Parks and the neighbors in the county have done to make it a better project. I probably have even more that I could say about what it means for us that something like this takes 16 plus years and the risks to getting anything done if regulatory agencies such as ours go beyond the resources under our jurisdiction as we're conditioning projects. But I'll hold that off because I think it may not be necessary and just say that I appreciate all the work and I agree the time has come and we should approve it.
So is that well, first of all, thank you for your
Yeah, I can make the
comments.
motion. It doesn't cut off debate. We all know
Right.
that. There'll be a second, and if
Right.
we can have further debate, I move that we approve permit 19320 and take the other actions described in the staff report for 9A.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, that's not going to preclude any discussion though. So we have a second. Any other board members have comments, discussion? Mr. Countryman? I'm sorry, I looked left first.
I mean, this project clearly does not impact the flood control system or the designated floodway. There's been absolutely zero information provided that would indicate that this project has a negative impact on the designated floodway or on this state plan of flood control. And therefore, I think it's clear within our jurisdiction of what the board is doing is that there would be absolutely no reason not to approve this permit maybe 6 or 7 years ago. but I will end up supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Countryman. Anybody? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Board Member
No,
Bosler.
thank you. And I want to also echo the thanks to the staff for the very thorough work. I think I don't take it lightly that the county supervisors and the board are opposing this project. I align with what Mr. Countryman just said, though. I mean, I think it's very clear at our jurisdiction and what our job is here today, that there is really no, it is to approve this permit. There's nothing that is out of line with what our job is here today. That said, I really hope that in the future that the county government and the community can really, work together on what the land use priorities are. That to me seems to be at the heart of the disagreement here. And I know it's always hard for private landowners to live next to public spaces. And I think that is something that is a legitimate concern. And I know Parks is going to do everything in its power to make sure that, those borders are respected. That said, it's still, the realities are hard because people wander. But I really do think that the type of project that we're seeing here is exactly the kinds of projects we want to see on our system. It's all about slowing water down, keeping the water in the ground. And that's clearly evident here with this project. And I think it's a really great opportunity. And I just hope in the future that the county can really have a conversation, the government with its citizens, about land use decisions, well before, this conflict really, like that is unfortunate. So I'm going to support the project today, and I just appreciate all of the hard work and due diligence that's been done. Just one other thing, just to note of, this design standards, been a lot of workshops in the last year where we talk about some of the limitations that we have with the data and analysis of that data. That exists, on many different projects. And I think that's been said multiple times today. And I think that's an argument for, and I know DWR has been actively in the federal government too, investing in science and modeling capabilities to really address the changing climate patterns and changing hydrology that we're experiencing on many parts of the system, or all parts of the system. So just, definitely agree that, but it's still, this is the system we have. This is the process we have. We don't have any other process or system. This is why it's such a big debate and discussion, what we're doing at the federal government about standards, et cetera, because that's the process in which you change the analysis paradigm.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Board Member Andrews?
Thank you, Vice President Lyons. I don't have the long history with this project that many of you on the board do, having lived through some of the discussion and negotiations and reconsiderations and deliberations before today. But I appreciate what I've heard in terms of the concerns that all of the players have had in trying to work out the challenges that it will occur every single time you make a change in land use anywhere. And that's just a fact, and it doesn't matter even what the change is, there will be somebody impacted by it. And I appreciate the tremendous amount of work and consideration that staff and the applicant have given to the implications of the project for everyone around them. A project like this at the confluence of multiple waterways is a really terrific place to look for this kind of opportunity. It's a very dynamic point in the system. It's a hard place to engage in other activities. Honestly, it's hard to manage flood flows when you've got multiple systems coming together. I'm excited about the opportunity that this represents to take a step towards the kind of project that will benefit habitat and our flood system. And really take some issues away, because we're not trying to do other things on this property. It will be functioning in a way that is going to be beneficial for habitat, because that is where dynamics really contribute to what we can expect to come out of this type of change. I appreciate that the public concerns aren't limited to the ones of the considerations that this board is responsible for. And the fact that this project very clearly is not going to diminish the flood system or adversely affect it in any way, makes it, my only regret is that we haven't figured out how to do this more quickly yet. But that is the challenge before us. How can we make this process very considerate of the very real concerns of the public and the adjacent landowners, and yet be able to reach a decision more quickly, so that we are not sitting 16 years on something that might have been put in place already. So I will be supporting this motion today as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So I can't say anybody else because I think we've all commented, right? So I think we're good to go. But I get a chance. I can say something, right? So just a few takeaways. One, outside of it being almost 20 years to do this, I feel like this process, meaning just recently, fully understanding a frustration on two sides of taking this long, is actually how it should work. We're just coming up on 2 hours. That's not much to give for something that's been this long, but the discussion here from the public, from our staff, thank you very much, from the applicant, even those opposed, everybody, has been a lot of time and energy. And in a way, I feel like this is probably gonna make everyone mad, so I'll say it. This is kind of how government works, and it should in a full discussion outside of 20 years. Appreciate your point. Not sure why it took that long. So we'll move to that, but I would just say 2 quick comments. It would be great to have this come back for updates once in a while. Just love to know what's happening, so it doesn't just go away. Not making any assumptions on the vote, but that would be good. And there's nothing to stop, people of goodwill trying to have conversations and continue dialogue and look for ways to help each other that are neighbors and have adjoining property. So I would hope that that will continue as well. So I think at this point, are we ready to call a vote? We have a motion and a second. So please call the roll.
Thank you. Member Andrews,
Aye.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Member Bosler,
Aye.
Member Grego.
So I'm going to support this permit with a caveat that I hope that the applicant and the neighbors still can have an open dialogue and try to find some consensus and agreement. There's not a good project unless the people are happy in the neighborhood. So my hopes is that, and I appreciate your comment, Mike, in regards to having an update of where this is at, and hopefully we find something positive out of this. So with that, I vote yes.
Countryman. Yes. Vice President Lines.
Aye.
Aye. President Dolan's up. Motion passes.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passes. Why don't we take a 10-minute break? We'll go till 10 after. It's 12:01. We're going 9 minutes to 10 after. Thanks, everybody, for that one. Appreciate it. And we'll be back at 12:10. Back, we were having to do a little business of the board in between, but we are ready to go back to board items. We are on board item B, which is the governor's middle mile broadband initiative project update. So I believe Mr. Selvamahan is going, there you are, standing up there already. Perfect. Why don't we go ahead and start that?
Ready to go.
We'll get your presentation up on the screen. But you can start if you want. Okay. There you
Good
go.
afternoon, Vice President Blynes, members of the board. My name is Selva Salomohan. I'm the manager of the Sacramento levee section under the flood system improvement branch. I'm here today to give a monthly update on the Governor's Middle Mile Broadband Initiative project and the encroachment permit applications associated with that project. This is a monthly informational briefing and agenda item 9B. Oh, it's already up there. Here's my presentation outline. I will first start off with the project map, and then we'll show you the current status of permit applications. And we'll highlight, what changed from our last board meeting. And then we'll wrap up the presentation with going through forecasted activities for the near future. So here's a project map that showcases the fiber network and the regulated streams and designated floodways in the state of California. The black lines, the spider network map, is the proposed fiber optic network. And the blue, shaded area and the lines show the regulated streams and designated floodways, adapted plan of flood control. So you can see the interaction between those two elements, and that's where we come into play to process permit applications. This map, we put together based on your countrymen's, request at the last board meeting. Here is a geographical extent of permit application received as of to date. The map shows, the permit application received, processed, and, the bridge applications and culvert applications associated with the Middle Mile Broadband project. The red boxes indicates the conduit application in process, and the green boxes indicate the completed permits, and the dark blue circles, show the bridges and culverts that are in process. Here's a matrix of where we are in terms of permitting process. So I'll go a little slow in this. The first row show the applications received. Fiber lines, we received a total of 24 applications, and bridges 9 and culverts 3 that are associated with this permit. That brings up a total of 36 applications. Since then, CDT, the California Department of Technology, and Caltrans has withdrawn about 6 applications. Either they no longer need that particular alignment, or they have found alternatives, to carry out their fiber optic network project. So that implies six total, and then fiber lines 5 application and bridge 1 application was received. And the third row shows the permits issued so far. So far, we have issued 17 permits for fiber lines, and we haven't issued any bridge permits yet, but thanks to the resolution which passed this morning, so we are going to start processing those bridge applications. We have issued 1 culvert application so far, so that brings a total of 17 applications processed and completed as of today. That brings to the last row, which shows the permit that are under process. Fiber lines 2, applications are only remaining, and we plan to issue 1 permit early next week, and then another second last one by late September. So that will complete all the fiber optic line permits as of, that we received as of today. And we anticipate receiving more, permit applications, but we haven't received anything yet. Bridge applications, we have to process 8 bridge applications. Again, thanks to the resolution. In total, we have about 13 applications to complete processing. So what changed since our last board meeting, July 26? We have issued 2 fiber optic conduits permit, and we have scheduled 1 conduit permit for August delegation that will be issued in September. And we received 1 application for an unpermitted bridge. We have received, 4 conduit applications withdrawal request. And the last, just to highlight, the last application for the fiber lines was received on July 8. Since then, we haven't received any application for fiber lines. Yes.
Mr. Countryman.
When you say fiber lines, what's, as opposed to the bridges, what exactly is fiber lines?
So the fiber optic line is the proposed middle mile broadband network project, and the bridges and culverts, that's where the fiber line actually runs. The fiber lines actually runs along the bridges and culverts, and then we process their culverts and bridge applications. So we, process those applications that cross the bridges and culverts. So the fiber network line is the proposed middle mile broadband network. And the bridges and culverts where the fiber lines traverse through and that interfere with our regulated jurisdictional areas, adopted plan of flood control. So when the fiber line intersect or interfere with our adopted plan of flood control, we process the permits. So that's where the bridges and culverts come into play. And those bridges were unpermitted. And with the resolution we passed this morning, we will be able to process those, bridges. So what do we have in the pipeline for the near future? As we receive, additional applications for the middle mile broadband project, we will process those applications. And we will start processing the unpermitted bridge applications impacted by the middle mile broadband project, and then provide monthly briefing to the board, on the progress of the project application process. That concludes my presentation, and I'm open up for questions. Thank you.
Questions from the board? Questions from the public? Anybody online?
No hands raised online.
Okay. Getting back to board, no, I would just make a quick comment that, as you know, this has been a priority to our president. She's been very focused on this. And obviously you guys have really put a lot of work and effort into it. So thank you. These updates are great, but that's a lot of work happening. So thank you. I would sure in the last project would have liked to put on that schedule than the one that they were on for 20 years. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Team, everybody. All right, so I believe we're going to move to 9C, which is the board staff activities report. So we're going to hear from Ms. Buckley. And I think she's got a few other folks that'll do stuff. So we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Valines, members of the board. Yes, we do have Patrick Nolan, Senior Right-of-Way Agent for DWR, who assists the board with real estate function, is online. He's under the weather and thought it best to protect us in that way. So he will be partaking in part of the slideshow here after I make the introduction. So what this real brief presentation will be on the status of the Sacramento San Joaquin Drainage District, part of our environmental services and land management branch. And the presentation today is going to cover the board's authority in relationship to the property holdings, our current portfolio of real estate interests, our current leasing and revenue that has been received for the past fiscal year, future and a look at our future leasing exercise to obtain the highest and best use of our state property, and then a few current activities that staff is undertaking as it relates to being reactive to property management interests. So first, a reminder that the board's authority to manage and control the Sacramento and San Joaquin Drainage District lies in Water Code Section 8502. And this will be a bit of an update from the last presentation in December, but the updated figures in relationship to our real estate interests are 23,000 acres in fee title, 10,000 acres in joint use agreements with various entities, and 188,000 acres in easements. And those easements can either be what is considered an operation and maintenance easement or a flowage easement. Do we have Patrick unmuted to continue the next slide? Patrick Nolan, Department of Water Resources Senior Right-of-Way Agent. Patrick, can you hear?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, the the volume is a little low.
Let me
I'm not sure we can hear you, Patrick.
testing. Can you hear me now? Can
It's
you hear me?
slightly better, but not great.
Okay. Apologies. Bear with me here. Can you hear me now?
That's good. Thank you,
That's good
Patrick.
enough. Let's do this.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Vice President Valines and members of the board. I'm going to try to put myself on camera here as well. Apologies. I couldn't be there in person today, but I'm still getting over an illness. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see me, but if you can hear me, I'll proceed. So today I am going to be going over some informational slides regarding Central Valley Flood Protection Board property management. As Andrew introduced me, I am the Senior Right-of-Way Agent Specialist of the Board Property Management. And this first slide here, we're just going to look at active SSJDD leases today. Our lease revenues and royalties total for the fiscal year 23-24 came to $773,426. The lease types that are comprising this are 10 land leases. We have 7 private leases, 2 agricultural, 2 apiary, 1 grazing, 1 sand removal, and 1 parking lot lease. And we have 3 public leases, one with these California Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's a master lease with 24 subleases within it. And we have 1 lease with Department of Water Resources. It's an emergency preparedness down in Rio Vista. And we have 1 with Sutter County for the Tisdale Weir boat ramp. In addition to the land leases, we have 5 oil and gas leases that are still active. An interesting note here for these, we do have a contract with the State Lands Commission, as they have personnel and expertise to conduct the inspections of our lease facilities to ensure they are safe and properly maintained on state property. Next slide, please. And I'm sorry you can't see me. I don't know if you can see me or not, but
We can't, Patrick, but go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. And so our next slide here, we're going to look at lease availability and revenue generation therefrom. So we're starting at the bottom of this pyramid here, just giving an illustration depiction here. We're starting with 211,000 plus or minus acres. That's including fee and easement in the name of SSJDD. But the next part of this pyramid here, up to 23,000 is what's owned in fee, which is required for lease availability. And then from there, we move up to 11,600 plus or minus acres that are not already leased. And then from there, we jut off to the right here and look at our determining factors for lease consideration. And after we ran this drill, we reached the top of our pyramid, somewhere around 995 plus or minus acres that look like they have lease potential. So wanted to give all the board members an updated acreage count and what we're showing for lease availability. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so some current activities. First up, we have our database and mapping upgrades. This is a big improvement. Our Department of Water Resources Geomatics branch has successfully integrated all the board leases into our geographic integration system known as GIS parcel viewer. So this will allow for all our staff, especially those who are not privy to board lease information, they'll be able to quickly identify any conflicts with any potential projects, encroachments, etc. And then from there, we can expedite resolution of such conflicts related to our board property that are leased. Here's an image here. I apologize, it's a little small, but hopefully you can see. We have easement in green, fee, or excuse me, easement, in green, and fee is blue. But the additional here is now we will be seeing the red boundary for board leases will also be showing for staff, as well as the hash marked red boundary for board oil and gas leases. So quite excited about this development. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Next, oh, can we go? I think, yeah, here we go. Next up is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Master Lease Renewal is coming up to expire in March 31st, 2027. That was a 50-year lease with, was at that time Department of Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, and we are looking to renew that, and it's quite a big hurdle, big to do. The desire here to encourage development and maintenance of fish and wildlife habitat on board property, while also having reservations for maintaining, constructing, and operating our flood control structures upon written notice. And negotiations with CDFW staff are in progress, and we're looking at our entire unleased board portfolio for this master lease renewal. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. And then lastly, on the current activities in Yuba County with Trilla and the Grays Beach area. So the SSJDD property management staff assisted with the public ordinance in Yuba County, which was passed July 9 and took effect August 9 of this year. Staff met with locals, property owners, local officials, many discussions to discuss the impacts. And the ordinance here is intended to protect the life, property, and the environment of this area. The ordinance does protect an existing board agricultural lease that we have in the area as well, and may potentially result in additional board leasing opportunities with folks such as CDFW and others. So public day use recreational access to the Feather River and Grace Beach does continue. However, certain activities are now prohibited and are now enforceable, such as off-roading vehicles, overnight camping, and discharging firearms, to name a few. But this is not the end of the road here on this matter. We'll continue to be involved with all the locals, officials, property owners. There's more, there's an intended Trilla ordinance as well in conjunction with the counties to have, that's going to have more details pertaining to access through Trilla's property. And so we're an integral part of this discussion, and we look forward to working more on this area for the benefit of all. That's, I think, next slide.
So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and pick back up here. One of the board's program is the SSJDD Property Abatement Program that was started a couple of years ago. Currently, we have a contract with the city of Sacramento for this program. This is a mutually beneficial partnership between the governmental agencies and the SSJDD and board to abate hazardous conditions and as you can see from the pictures, impacting the floodways and channels of which SSJDD has a stewardship responsibility. The project is somewhat under-resourced at this time, but we continue to explore and advocate for those resources. And with that, we recently have the governor's executive order, N-124, which was executed on July 25th, which speaks to the program that we are currently executing. And so we were looking at that executive order to refine the processes in conjunction with the Caltrans Department Maintenance Policy Directive 1001 R1, which details procedures for site assessment, noticing requirements, removal operations, and personal effects considerations, as well as record keeping that needs to occur with respect and sensitivity to our unhoused community. So we will continue to advocate for resources and refine those policies and keep you updated on the progress.
Question?
Sure. Oh, sure.
I was just gonna ask a question on these slides.
Absolutely.
That's not like a before and after, right?
It is a before and after. This is in Lower Morrison Creek in Sacramento. The cleanup, you could see the right of way in between the power poles in the bottom left is now fully cleared. This activity took place in May of last year. This is all SSJDD property.
Thank you. Did you have anything?
I have a question, but you can go, Joe.
Mr. Countryman.
Do we have, since our LMAs are out there, in the field where a lot of our property is, is there some sort of feedback loop, about, homeless populations on the levee or whatever, of asking for our assistance or anything like that?
We do hear from our LMA and maintaining partners about occurrences. They are our eyes and ears on the ground about what's going on the property. They have certain limitations about the handling of this material and addressing the unhoused community directly. So they do rely on the counties and cities and governmental agencies who have that wraparound service type of assistance. And the abatement program is set up to be the work between and then reimbursement for those activities. But we do appreciate the LMAs and maintainers letting us know of issues so that we can proactively address those with the counties and cities.
I recall, it was a couple of years ago where we did the field trip out on the American River levees. And, prolific invasion there by homeless folks. And in some places, they're actually excavating into the levees to create a flat spot for their tents and so forth. Is that gone away now? Do we know, or?
I would not say that has gone away. I think maybe that case that you're speaking of has been remediated. But it's a process where the individuals, if they still remain unhoused, they may move up and down the system, and we see it in another location with another RD or LMA. So it's a moving target. And we do appreciate the LMAs alerting us to those so that we can go directly to the county and work out an arrangement to abate those nuisances.
Our staff's not intentionally going and doing inspections like that. I mean, if they see something when they're out there, they may report it, but
We aren't doing that level of we don't have resourcing for that level of pedestrian surveying. And we do rely heavily on those local partners to notify us.
Board Member Bosler.
I'm interested in the next steps on this executive order implementation, and do you guys have those formulated yet, or that's in process?
That is in process. For the most part, though, our current program, it aligns with this policy. It's the more surgical alignment with the Caltrans maintenance policy that we want to firm up. But the overall intent is the partnerships with state agencies, with locals to abate the nuisances, and we already have that in place. Any other questions in regards to land management in the Sacramento and San Joaquin Drainage District?
Any other questions from the board? Joe?
Not a question. I can remember from years of attending board meetings where quite regularly there was a vote to accept a lease for gas wells and things. And I haven't seen anything like that for a long time. Is that just because the gas ran out, or is it?
In some cases, those resources are depleted, and those wells have been closed down and properly shut down in consultation with State Lands Commission, as they have the expertise to make sure that those are properly closed, so there aren't any incidents. But most of the leases, the 5 are in holdover, so they continue until we move through a competitive process to reappraise and go through that.
Yeah, I don't have specific questions, but I want to thank you, everybody who contributed to this for putting this together for us. I found it really informative, and it's a part of our program that we don't see every day. And so I really appreciate that. Took particular interest in the lease renewal with DFW and potential for that to expand. That seems promising, and I look forward to hearing more about that as it goes forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Board member comments? I have one just on the close. Well, first of all, I agree with you. It was interesting to see, all the acreage and what we have. I wish there was a way that money would come to us and not the general fund. But I don't know how that all works, but it seems like it should come to us. I actually wanted to zero in a little bit on what is probably the most difficult thing to deal with is the pictures of the unhoused population that you showed and how to do that with dignity and respect and still, do what we have to do. And the governor's clearly, this cuts across all forms of government. So good job coordinating like on the Caltrans stuff, whatever we're doing to do it and do it right. I just want to say thanks. I mean, it goes without saying, but that's not easy to do. So appreciate it and just keep us posted on that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You can, as you used to say in the legislature, is that your close?
That's all I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. So we're moving to item 10. Item 10 is the Department of Water Resources. It's a written report. Occasionally it'll be, given in person. It's been for a while, a written report. We go through that ourselves. I assume that's a public thing that people can see. Perfect. So you can go through and see that. We appreciate that. That's number 10. I don't know if there's any questions from the board or anything on that. We all go through that. A public comment on that too? Oh, I should have asked public comment last time. Sorry. Any public comment on the last two things? Online?
No hand raised online.
Thank you. So jumping to number 11 on the staff activity reports. These are reports that we get, that we read as well. I'm assuming they are public. If not, there's a lot of information in these. There's a lot of work that goes into these. Thank you from our staff for these. Across the board, there's just a lot of information that we get through. Are there any comments from the board or questions on the staff reports that were submitted? Any comments from the public, which looks eerily like our staff? Any comments online?
No hands raised online.
We have a question.
Not a question, just a comment. As you review the executive staff and administrative division report, you'll notice that I was able to join our executive officer and our chief deputy out on a site visit with some legislative staff, both from the LAO and then also from the administration and the resources agency down in Stockton and as far south as Lathrop. And I just want to give huge kudos to SAJAFCA. They are doing amazing work down there. Not easy stuff. Lots of legacy issues, people in harm's way, and they are making major investments. A lot of it supported by the state and federal government. But they're also doing their part to get 218 elections passed down there as well. A couple things that I just want to bring back is, we have a lot of interests to balance in the state of California. A lot has been said about the housing crisis that we have been in for decades, and the fact that it's very hard to afford a house. There was building down there. And it's one thing to know it like very intellectually. It's another thing to see it. I had my own reactions, but then I saw the intentional protection that's being invested in, and there's a balance. There's just not a lot of places in the Bay Area to put more houses, and we have the Central Valley where there's more open space than other parts of the state. Is it near rivers? Are there risks involved? Yes, but I will say that down there, I really think there's some very broad planning going on, and there's a lot of really intentional development planning going on and the infrastructure to back up and protect those houses. And I think it's the exact hard balance that we have to figure out here. There's just not you can't just say never like there, you have to think through all of the trade-offs. And I saw some dry land levies, which were, I think, very interesting to me, but they were necessary. They're a long ways from the river, but they're protecting communities that at this point are there's going to be a lot of people behind those levees. So it just, and then we also saw old legacy development in Stockton that's sitting on sand levees since the 1900s, not the 1800s, 1900s. And, a huge new structure to protect those communities as well. And so I think that when we're building new, we have an opportunity to be very mindful and think about the best way to protect communities. Where we're trying to protect existing people, it's much more challenging and much more expensive. But I was really impressed with Sajafka's tour and all of the thoughtfulness that they are doing to do the really hard work. Also, I want to give kudos to them for really working with all aspects of their community. We were able to meet with an environmental justice group locally there that was partners with Sajafka in getting many of these projects done. So a lot of people on the ground really taking the time to understand the trade-offs. And so just really applaud that community for coming a long ways. And in chatting with other people on the tour, we had many people from DWR with us as well. Just really impressed. And I know a lot of other people have the long history with that community, but it's not always been as robust as it is right now. And it's really exciting to see that energy.
Thank you. That's a perfect segue into number 12 on board comments and upcoming updates. And I would just dovetail on what you said. It's I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes in our own little perspective, you can look at something and go, why are they doing it? Why are they building here, right? Like, how can this happen? But then you realize we are doing a balance of affordable housing and safety. So thanks for bringing that back. So on board comments and upcoming committee updates, does anybody have anything they want to share that they did, they want to do, that they like, suggestions? Mr. Countryman?
Brian and I have met with DWR staff that are developing the plan update, state plan of flood control update, specifically the climate change and how that might be implemented. Very complex, I have to say. But one of the things they're looking at is this level of describing a level of concern, which I can't quite figure out. In other words, they ask people, what level of risk are you willing to take, for where you're living? And it's like, I mean, if I'm not stating this right, Brian, just jump in, because it's a little difficult. But at any rate, but without saying, what triggered me on this was what the cost of it is. There's a risk side and there's a cost side of what you can do. And, can you have a house or you cannot have a house? It's complex. It's more than just asking people, what's your level of concern about flooding? Because if you're going to meet, if I was asked, I'd say, I don't want 1 in 500 chance of flooding. I don't, I want them. But then if you come back and say, and are you willing to pass a tax, that would increase your taxes $5,000 a year to get that level of protection? Wait, well, maybe I don't need that much. So anyway, this is the kind of thing they're working through right now. It was very interesting, very complex, but hopefully we're getting to something that's going to be serviceable and usable.
Thank you, Mr. Countryman. Good point. Yes.
Yeah, just expanding on that, I think it really does, if we do it the right way, it will allow us to ask these questions in a manner that is methodical and allows us to make good decisions and to be able to describe what the basis for the decisions was. And being able to judge what people's actual level of concern and ability to pay is one thing, but as a technical matter, I'm really encouraged, subject to a lot more discussion and digging into the details, that the analysis that's being done now will be more useful than the climate change analysis that we had before, which makes sense because they keep advancing it, and they're some of the best people in the world at knowing how to do this. When you think about it stepwise, in order of operations, having technical material that allows us to be able to make judgments about levels of risk that exist and what sources of uncertainty there are, and then being able to discuss what's acceptable and to make choices about costs and trade-offs and the best way to go about doing it. Some of it will be the type of thing that we and our partners can do. Some of them will ultimately go back to the legislature or Congress to assign. But if we have good information about the best science for the underlying risks, and then we can make it transparent to people so that we can be able to have real conversations about it and not have hidden assumptions that obscure the policy making, the decision making, I think we'll be in a lot better shape than we were a few years ago. This is not easy, but I do feel like we're making progress.
Thank you for that. Glad the two of you are working on that too. Appreciate it. Did you have anything? Oh, I thought it was moving towards a hand raise. Is there any other comments from the board? I think we'll go into some upcoming meetings after this. Is there any comments from staff that they want to make or highlight that we've missed?
Any complaints about the board?
Yeah, we'll save that for closed session. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is go to oh yeah, are there any online comments on what we just talked about?
There are no hands raised online.
Thank you. So in terms of upcoming meetings, we have a board workshop September 13th. We have a coordinating committee September 24th at West Sacramento City Hall. Our next board meeting is September 27th. We'll be right here. Our board workshop will be right here as well on the 13th. So that's the next 3 key meetings that are coming up. Is there anything else we need to do before? Yeah, well, there's no closed session, so we don't need a motion to adjourn, do we? So it looks like we are going to be adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a nice weekend.